more than they did in the 2008 and 2012 elections, which is the last time we had good exit polling. But I think that we need to have a discussion among our communities, among ourselves, as to why a man who makes these openly racist comments, who talks about the fact that we shouldn't have, the end of the Constitution, which was in many ways designed to protect African Americans, why he still did so well with white voters.
And so incredible, yeah.
I think people are seeing, well, this is a victory for African Americans, but I also think in a way it's a defeat and it's an indictment of many white voters who don't see this as problematic for everybody.
And more did better with white women than Trump did.
Yeah, the white women vote just continues, I think, to frustrate particularly African American women and voters, because there's this sense that there's a coalition of African Americans and particularly suburban white women. And we saw with respect to Donald Trump, those white women didn't break in favor of Clinton, they broke in favor of Donald Trump. And we saw tonight the same way, white women broke in favor of
much higher numbers, though.
High numbers. And some reports suggest that white women, particularly uneducated white women, they draw their power from white men. So they are going to be aligned with the white male vote more so than any coalition that may exist with minority voters. And so I think we saw that tonight. White women, particularly, if we look at the socioeconomic and the education level of those voters, we'll probably see a huge percentage of uneducated white women voting with Roy Moore because their husbands, the men in their lives, voted for Roy Moore. So we've got to talk about how do we really build coalitions with white women and African American, Latino, and other people of color if we're going to really be successful in 2018 and 2020.
I want to just go weigh in very quickly because I know you seem like you wanted to say something.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It's key to look at that, but what's striking to me is that these numbers in terms of who turned out and the racial background of who turned out and how they voted was actually fairly predictable, except for what we're talking about, which is the overwhelming number of African Americans who voted for Roy Moore. So most things actually in the Alabama race, after all of our talk about the fact that...
You mean the African Americans that voted for Doug Jones?
Excuse me, for Doug Jones. So all of our discussion about how people thought, well, all of these accusations are going to be a factor, the exit polls show that the majority of people said the accusations of sexual harassment and pedophilia, they weren't the factor. President Trump
made their minds even before
the and so we largely stayed the status quo, except for the large number of African Americans who went for Doug Jones.
Okay. I think it tells us race, and race.
Yeah.
Jessica and Ariva, thank you both.
Thank you, ladies. All right, quick break here. Next on Newsroom LA, we'll go back to our political panel for more on this stunning upset in Alabama. Stay with us.
The very first time I met Bruce, I saw on his lapel he's got a Purple Heart.
We started talking about the service. I outrank him.
Yeah. Meals on Wheels reaches so many people. It's impactful beyond anything I've ever done in my life.
The meals and his friendship really means a lot to me.
Through the Subaru Share the Love event, we've helped deliver over 1.7 million meals to those in need. Get a new Subaru and we'll donate $250 more.
Put a little love in your heart.
Once upon a time, there was a simple box. Inside it, the most comfortable bed imaginable. Engineered by an award-winning team, on the Casper, life is but a dream.
Try it today at Casper.com.
So I think I got to get my roof repaired. You know anybody?
Yeah, actually I might.
Yeah, great. Can you do a free background check on them? Get me some additional quotes and book it for 2 weeks from now.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything HomeAdvisor can. So to find and book a top-rated home pro for free, just ask HomeAdvisor.
HelloFresh fits my schedule, it fits my budget, it fits my life.
Simple steps, fun, delicious ingredients pre-portioned out. When you're done, you have like a masterpiece.
Go to HelloFresh.com and use code TV30 to save $30 off your first box. HelloFresh, get cooking.
Give a little bit, give a little bit of your love to me. There's so much that we need to share, so send us word and show that you care. Give a little bit of my love to you.
Life happens everywhere, like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
This is electricity. This is a power plant. This is Tim Barkholz.
That's me.
This is something he's researching at ExxonMobil, using fuel cells to capture carbon emissions at power plants.
This is the potential.
Reducing CO2 emissions by up to 90%, while also producing more power.
This could be big.
Energy lives here.
Prime Minister,
It takes the power of leadership to confront fear.
Our country must be saved. Have courage, Miss Layton. Courage.
And the power of words to unite a nation.
Victory at all costs.
Now, Darkest Hour is a Golden Globe nominee for Best Actor, Gary Oldman.
We shall fight on the beaches and on the landing ground.
And a Critics' Choice nominee for Best Picture of the Year.
We shall never surrender!
Darkest Hour, rated PG-13.
It's a small finger, a worm.
Like a dagger?
Tiny sword.
Breadstick.
Matchstick.
A lamppost.
Coin slot. No.
10 seconds.
A stick, a walking stick,
Yeah,
a boundary, a Kilimanjaro, a big
Sorry, it's a tandem bicycle.
What?
As long as sloths are slow, you can count on Geico saving folks money. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-900-0202.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now for free information.
Possibly the strangest moment of the past 24 hours, defeated candidate Roy Moore riding his horse to cast his ballot.
Yeah, indeed.
There we go.
In case you're wondering, that's a Tennessee walking horse, apparently. That's
Called
what
Sassy.
Yep.
Okay, back to our panel now for what was a standout moment, a takeaway, what you remember most from the this election result. Austin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, listen, I think as much as this is just a one-off election, it was a special election in December. You had pedophilia allegations, so it's not going to be recreated. I think Republicans have a really hard time with white educated voters in suburban areas. We've seen that over the past elections. I also think anyone who works on campaigns now has to add to the list of vetting questions, do you intend on riding a horse poorly?
Caroline?
I think that Donald Trump needs to be as worried about sexual violence allegations as he does Russia. I think that this tells us very clearly that the electorate matters, that this matters to the electorate. It's a salient issue, and this is a man who has an allegation from a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, his ex-wife, and 16 other women.
Mo?
I think this is a good moment for the Democrats. It's generating momentum. It remains to be seen whether that moment is going to turn from momentum into a movement. The Democrats need not to overplay their position and think that this is going to ride them off into the sunset into 2018. I'm sorry.
And the horse metaphors are seriously.
John.
My takeaway is that candidates matter. The Republicans need to field a bunch of people to run for office next cycle who have been vetted, who are disciplined. No more dinner theater Donald Trumps.
Okay.
Donald Trump supporter.
Yeah, okay.
No,
And
there is the original, and it works for him.
Okay.
Right. But there's a lot of copycats where it's like
original sexual predators, not the copycats.
Yeah.
And I just want to, when I said should Hillary Clinton go away, what I meant to say was should she be keeping a lower profile? Is she doing more harm than good by propping up and being on this book tier and being so visible after having lost the election and having been so divisive, in many parts of politics in this country? That is what I meant. No offense to Secretary Clinton.
Yes. Donald Trump is one really good tweet away from shifting momentum away from this election back on Hillary Clinton. Yes.
Well, she will be impeached any day now.
So very quickly, who is going to be the subject of President Trump's tweet in the coming hours? Trump whisperer.
I say Bannon. It may not be in the coming hours, but I think in the long term, Bannon takes the blame.
Austin, who will be the subject of the next tweet?
I think he actually makes a jab at establishment Republicans.
Caroline?
I think it's going to be Bannon. Bannon simply didn't vet this candidate well. He should probably stick to propaganda at Breitbart.
Mo.
He's just going to blame the Democrats. He's not going to go after Bannon. I think he fears Bannon. Bannon can actually hurt him.
He's going to blame Hillary Clinton.
Which is the Democrats.
Exactly.
On Drudge today, Bannon was taking the blame.
Well, Sean Hannity, though, was blaming McConnell. So that's a toss-up.
McConnell was blamed for the primary. I'm telling you, Bannon's going to take.
I will say this: listen, there's again all of those things that make this a weird election. 22,000 plus write-ins. Richard Shelby, that kind of falls on his shoulders largely. So.
Yeah, well, we shall see. We shall know in the coming hours what the president taps out on that little screen. We'll all be watching very closely. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for a great conversation. All right, thank you for watching CNN Newsroom Live from Los Angeles. I'm Aisha Sasay.
I'm John Vors. The news continues on CNN right after this.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, isn't it time to let the real you shine through? Maybe it's time for Otezla, a Premolast. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats plaque psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clearer skin is achievable after just 4 months, with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And the Otezla prescribing may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract.
Keeping that lab is an affront. Do you know what an affront is?
Something offensive?
That's right. We need to take it apart, learn how it works.
We can either save him or let him die.
Oh, woman, we gonna burn in hell.
The asset. Do you have it?
Honey, he's coming for you.
The Shape of Water. Rated R.
Hey, I'm Anderson Cooper.
And I'm Kelly Ripa.
Join us live for CNN Heroes and All-Star Tribute.
Live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
Value. It's a word that seems to have lost its meaning. But for us, it's more than a word. At Spectrum, we believe in giving you more than you expect. For less. Like more on-demand choices. Faster download speeds. More Wi-Fi hotspots to connect to. And above all, no contracts, no hidden charges, no surprises. Because that's the way we'd expect to be treated too. Spectrum, redefining what a cable company can be.
I understand how somebody could get frustrated going on multiple runs for the same patient. There isn't a magic number of times that somebody can be brought back with naloxone. Naloxone has changed it so what would have been a fatal overdose is no longer a guarantee. Somebody can be saved.
Stop overdoses. Carry naloxone. Visit stopoverdoses.ohio.gov for more information.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
A seismic shift in the U.S. Senate. Doug Jones, the first Democrat to win in Alabama in a quarter century. The vote already leading to calls for a shakeup inside the White House. Good morning. Welcome to Early Start. I'm Christine Romans.
I'm Dave Briggs. It was a shocker. Were you stunned when you woke up?
You know, I had no idea how this thing was going to go. I just had no idea how that race was going to go.
I was stunned to read the results. Wednesday, December 13th. It is 3 a.m. in the East, 2 a.m. in the center of the political universe, which is Alabama this morning. Democrat Doug Jones turning deep red Alabama blue, capping off a long-shot campaign with a stunning win over Republican Roy Moore in last night's high-stakes Senate race. Jones taking 49.9% of the vote, 1.5 points ahead of Moore, who could not overcome sexual misconduct allegations that plagued him from the outset.
Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past, and unfortunately, we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road. As Dr. King liked to quote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice."
Moore quoted scripture as he talked to his supporters. He refused to concede, telling his supporters it's not over and it's going to take some time. His campaign insisting a recount is possible, depending on write-in and military ballots. But Alabama's state Republican Party says it's over. And Alabama's Secretary of State says it is highly unlikely the outcome will change. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with CNN's Eric Bradner. Eric, what tilted this race to Doug Jones?
Yeah, a big part of why Doug Jones won was absolutely huge turnout from African-American voters. Black voters made up 30% of the electorate, according to CNN's exit polls. That's even bigger than in 2008 and 2012, the presidential elections. So the Jones campaign had really focused on turning out African-American voters, bringing people like civil rights icon John Lewis, the congressman from Georgia, Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, into the area, Charles Barkley, the basketball star, to campaign to try to turn out African-American voters. It worked. The other big element of success was suburbanites either staying at home or switching parties. These are two ingredients that are important, not just here in Alabama, but in 2018 headed into the midterms. It's what Democrats hope will be a recipe for success for taking the House. The other big lesson here is that candidates matter. Roy Moore was nowhere to be found on the campaign trail the final week. He had just about 2 events. He took 2.5 days off the trail to leave the state, go on a vacation with his wife. And that really ended up hurting him, whereas Jones was absolutely everywhere, campaigning in dozens of places every weekend.
All right, Eric Bradner for us in Montgomery as we're digging through these exit polls, seeing who turned out and why, and what tipped Doug Jones just across the finish line. Thank you so much for that, Eric.
All right, President Trump was all in on Moore when it was clear the Republican seat was lost. His reaction was extraordinarily tame by Trump standards. The president tweeting, "Congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends."
But a White House source tells CNN the result is devastating for the president, describing it as an earthquake. The finger-pointing already underway with calls for the president to replace his political director, Bill Stepien.
Let's go live to Washington and bring in Sarah Westwood, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and from Los Angeles, political commentator Mo Kelly, host of the Mo Kelly radio show. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Let's just get your reaction to what is a stunning defeat for the Republican Party, for the president, for Roy Moore. Sarah, we'll start with you.
Well, absolutely. This is a blow to President Trump's credibility. Once again, not only did he back the losing candidate in the Republican primary, Senator Luther Strange, who was originally appointed to fill that vacancy, but he ended up backing the loser in the general election as well. This is a president who really likes to be associated with winners, someone who doesn't usually tolerate losing very graciously. And so for him to be a part of a race that was a loser in a very red state where Republicans expected to win is obviously just a psychological blow to the White House, as well as a very real political one, because the loss of a Republican Senate seat could certainly imperil the rest of the president's agenda, and it puts a ticking time bomb on tax reform to get done before Doug Jones is seated.
Mo, let's talk about the anatomy of this win for Doug Jones. A squeaker, but it looks as though African Americans and women, especially women who are mothers of children under 18, suburban moms took him over the edge. But when you dig in with these numbers too, though, what I think is super interesting is that white women leaned toward Roy Moore.
There was nothing that was palatable about Roy Moore if you happen to be a woman, if you happen to be African American. We're talking about a candidate who was pro-slavery adjacent, a candidate who was anti-14th Amendment. If you can't beat a guy like this, then the Democrats would never have won. It was a stunning victory, but the RNC, the Republican Party, should be very concerned because the stain of Roy Moore lasts beyond this election because they went all in on this candidate, and so by association, they are seen as the party of Roy Moore, even though he lost.
The African-American turnout number, as was pointed out, exceeding Obama-level numbers, Mo, which is just stunning when you consider this is a special election. This is the only reason to come out and vote. 22,000 people came out and voted for a write-in knowing they have no factor in this election. Just to come out and say, no, I will not have this. What can you read into that as we approach 2018?
I would say that is emblematic of the dwindling power and import of the president in terms of influencing elections. Yes, President Trump won a year ago, but because of his actions, because of his influence, he is now motivating those on the left side of the aisle, those who are liberals and even moderates, to come out. He has energized the Democrats and the Democratic base in a way that Hillary Clinton could not. And that does not portend well for the Republicans going into 2018.
What happens now? The president and his response, Sarah, we're hearing this reporting from Maggie Haberman overnight that he had this kind of very tame tweet. What's the blame game going to be looking like, you think?
Well, certainly President Trump is probably going to have something additional to say besides the very congratulatory, conciliatory tweet that he put out earlier this evening. We really don't know what a defeated President Trump looks like. This is probably the biggest political defeat that he's been dealt since he's been in office. In other special elections that have taken place since he was president, like in Georgia, like in Kansas, Montana, Republicans have won. And so President Trump hasn't had to grapple with this kind of defeat. So it'll be very interesting to see how he reacts and how he and Republican leaders in Congress come to terms with the fact that getting their agenda through is going to be that much harder until 2018, because the margins in the Senate, which were already extremely thin for Republicans, are going to get just another vote thinner.
Roy Moore's own political strategist ahead of this election said this is Donald Trump on trial. If the people of Alabama vote for Doug Jones, they're voting against the president. That's from the Roy Moore campaign. What about the Steve Bannon war on incumbent Republicans? Is his power done as we know it, Mo?
I don't think so. He can always stay on the periphery and be a thorn in the side. He has always made it very clear that he is opposite of Lindsey Graham and what Lindsey Graham is trying to do. So if anything, Steve Bannon may not have the type of cachet or the power that many people thought that he had, but that doesn't change his direction. That doesn't change his intent or what he plans to do as far as trying to push through his specific agenda, which I view is somewhat different from the president's.
Let me read to you something from the Senate Leadership Fund. From Stephen Law, the CEO of the Senate Leadership Fund. This is a brutal reminder that candidate quality matters regardless of where you are running. Not only did Steve Bannon cost us a critical Senate seat in one of the most Republican states in the country, but he also dragged the President of the United States into this fiasco, Sarah.
Absolutely. There are a lot of folks who are going to be asking whether Steve Bannon has any credibility left heading into 2018 when he plans to back challenges to a lot of Republican incumbents. And there are a lot of questions about whether the Senate Leadership Fund and other groups took the right approach to the Republican primary. Remember that there was another Republican candidate in this race, Congressman Mo Brooks, who was seen as a bomb thrower in Congress, but someone who had been vetted by a congressional race before, someone who could have easily glided to victory during the general election. And the Senate Leadership Fund, Senator Mitch McConnell, went all out to prevent Mo Brooks from entering the runoff with Luther Strange, because, as you remember, a lot of establishment Republicans were behind Luther Strange, who lost to Roy Moore. So there have been a lot of questions about whether the Republican Party really botched this from the get-go by blocking an insurgent candidate who actually had a chance to win in the general election.
Finally, Mo, can Democrats overread the results here? This was a historically bad candidate for the Republican Party. He checked virtually every box of the bad candidate form that you might fill out. Can they overread this?
Oh, absolutely. In your question was the answer. We're talking about a special election in December against a candidate which would never, ever happen again. And you had a candidate who won in Doug Jones, who was just milquetoast enough where he didn't offend anyone. These circumstances will never appear again. And yes, it does change the trajectory going into 2018, but it doesn't decide what is going to happen in 2018. If I were a Democrat, and I'm not, I would say be happy in the moment, but don't get so happy that you overplay your hand moving forward.
It is stunning. Above all else, there's a lot of single-issue voters in Alabama, and they vote on abortion. We have a pro-choice senator from the state of Alabama, first Democrat in 25 years. We'll check in with you guys in about 30 minutes.
Thank you. Nice to see you bright and early or late, depending on your perspective and your coast. All right, was the president making a sexual insinuation when he said a New York senator would do anything for campaign contributions? This morning, one editorial says the president isn't even fit to clean toilets. Oh my goodness, more next.
Get new floors during Empire Today's gigantic 75% off sale. That's carpet, tile, laminate, and even hardwood, 75% off. Empire makes beautiful new floors easy. See samples in your home. Get a free estimate during your appointment and have your floors professionally installed. Update your floors with Empire and get 75% off carpet, tile, laminate, and hardwood. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today. You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters. Ship packages. All the services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/TV and never go to the post office again.
QuickBooks introduces Rodney. He has a new business teaching lessons. Rodney wanted to know how his business was doing, so he got QuickBooks. It organizes all his accounts so he can see his bottom line. Ah, that's a profit. Know where you stand instantly. Visit QuickBooks.com.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I've been single for a long time because I'm always traveling.
Looking for a real relationship?
I love meeting new people, diving into different cultures. I'm not a game player. I like nice guys. So if you're out there, come find me.
Check out Match right now for free.
Well, I've been looking a little bit prouder, singing louder, 'cause I feel alright. I'm dancing a little bit faster, shining brighter, 'cause I'm baby Everybody feel alright. Everybody feel alright.
Hi, Kathy Mitchell with my new Red Copper 5-Minute Chef. You're gonna love the way this kitchen wonder makes delicious home-cooked food in a flash. Making omelets in a fry pan is time-consuming and such a mess. Well, try this. Place in sausage, peppers, egg, and cheese. Then close the lid. No folding, no flipping, and in just 4 minutes, a delicious light and fluffy omelet. Designed with 2 deep wells, 5-Minute Chef cooks from the top and bottom, so my homemade corn dogs are done fast and easy. Make fabulous fruit pies in minutes. Infused with pure copper, and thanks to anti-scratch technology, it resists the toughest punishment. 5-Minute Chef is faster than takeout. Look, the meltiest, cheesiest pizza ever. You can't do that in a round pan. And no sticking. Everything comes right out. 5-Minute Chef is smaller than a toaster and cooks beef or pork moist and juicy while cutting cooking time in half. Even makes stuffed fried chicken with no fuss. And when you crave a quick dessert, stir up a little cake mix and fill in the well. Add cookies or candy and close the lid. In just minutes, this chocolate lover's dream. There's never a mess. Just a quick wipe and it's clean. Sear a sirloin, fry hash browns, bake biscuits faster than preheating an oven, cook perfect sunny side up eggs, then flip it over for over easy. That was easy. Call now and get my Red Copper 5-Minute Chef with spatula for just $39.99, and I'll ship it all for free. Plus, get my 5-Minute Meals and Desserts recipe book free. If Red Copper ever fails, we'll replace it guaranteed. But wait, you can double the offer and receive a second set. Plus our Flipwich sandwich maker. Just pay a separate fee. It lets you flip delicious hot sandwiches in just minutes. An incredible value, and I'll even ship it free. Call now.
Call 1-800-974-1178 to get your Red Copper 5-Minute Chef. Call or visit my5minutechef.com. So call 1-800-974-1178. That's 1-800-974-1178. Order now.
All right, the president's tweeting causing controversy. This time he is taking heat for taking on New York's Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She's calling for the president's resignation, citing the many sexual misconduct allegations against him. Now the president is under fire for tweeting Gillibrand would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them.
The president's critics claim he was insinuating the senator would accept sexual favors for financial support, or at least not closing the door to that. This scathing indictment of Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board, quote, a president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets and the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. This isn't about the policy differences we have with all presidents or our disappointment in some of their decisions. Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful. More now from CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Good morning, Christine and Dave. President Trump has injected himself squarely in the middle of the sexual harassment debate once again, going after, in a personal way, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, calling her a lightweight who would, quote, do anything for political contributions. This prompted this uproar over what the president meant by do anything for contributions. At the White House briefing on Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said this.
Many, including the senator, thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way. And so no.
So Sanders pushing back on the fact that there was any sexual innuendo intended by the do anything remark. But as for Senator Gillibrand, she reacted strongly to the president. She was on Capitol Hill, joined by other Democrats throughout the day, saying that President Trump simply cannot talk like this to Democratic senators or others.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice. And I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday, and neither will the millions of women who have been marching since the Women's March to stand up against policies they do not agree with.
So this back and forth puts President Trump again in the middle of this sexual harassment debate that's shaking the world of politics, media, and Hollywood. The president is saying he did not do what any of his accusers said. Now, many Democrats on Capitol Hill calling for his resignation or a congressional investigation into any of that. As for the White House, Sarah Sanders said the president would not participate in any type of an investigation on Capitol Hill into any of these allegations of wrongdoing. Dave and Christine.
All right, Jeff Zeleny at the White House for us this morning. Thanks, Jeff. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announcing the U.S. is ready for talks with North Korea without preconditions. He made the remarks Tuesday at the Atlantic Council in Washington. Tillerson making it clear if North Korea makes bad choices, the U.S. is prepared to act.
We're ready to talk anytime they'd like to talk. But they have to come to the table, and they have to come to the table with a view that they do want to make a different choice. In the meantime, our military preparedness is strong. I will continue our diplomatic efforts until the first bomb drops.
Pyongyang has dramatically ramped up the pace of its military program in 2017. Since February, the regime has fired off 23 missiles. All right, ahead, President Trump making his final pitch today on tax reform, promising big benefits for years to come. But the bill could have an immediate impact on your paycheck. Details next.
Hi, I'm Mike Ditka.
And I'm Johnny Bench.
And we spent our whole lives around professional sports taking hits.
And catching our fair share of aches and pains.
Which is why we use Blue Emu's pain relief products.
Blue Emu products, non-greasy, deep penetrating formula that works down into your muscles and joints and works its magic.
It's comfort that won't leave you smelling like a football gym bag.
Or an old catcher's mitt.
Or a shower mat in the locker room.
How about an old pair of socks after an extra inning game?
Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink.
How did you talk me into this?
This is crazy!
Horns! Watch the horns!
Okay.
What you don't see can hurt you. If you just monitor your credit, you can miss certain identity theft threats. LifeLock sees more, like your personal information on the dark web. And if there is a problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 million protection package. LifeLock, starting at $9.99 a month.
Okay, be good, kiddo. I gotta go to work. Bye.
Dog home alone all day without a walk? Introducing WAG, the on-demand dog walking app. Get a fully vetted, experienced dog walker at a moment's notice who'll give your dog the affection and attention they deserve. WAG has live GPS tracking and tells you where they mark their territory.
My dog pooped.
Get your first walk free when you download the app now.
The finest luxury items from the world's top designers, including Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Cartier, and hundreds more. All at up to 90% off retail, and each authenticated by our team of experts. Real luxury, unreal value, only at The Real Real. Shop now and get 20% off with the code REAL at therealreal.com and in our New York City store.
now at trypowerbot.com. Save $150. Financing available.
At the end of the day, there's nothing better than a glass of wine, especially that first sip. The taste is so important, and wine just doesn't taste as good a day after it's been opened. What if you didn't actually have to open the bottle at all? With my Coravin, I never need to pull the cork. I simply insert the needle, tip, and pour. The cork reseals to preserve the rest of the bottle for months or even years. At home, relaxing with a glass of wine or entertaining friends, just insert, tip, and pour. Buy Coravin at these fine retailers.
I cry every year during CNN Heroes, so this year I'm not going to be an ugly crier. I'm going to be a beautiful crier, so I've been working on it a lot.
CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute, live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
Long after the media and first responders are gone, Rebuilding Together works with those affected by disaster to rebuild lives, homes, and communities. As the nation's leading home rehabilitation organization, we invest in the long-term recovery of communities affected by natural disasters. Donate today to help us bring everyone back home.
This time of year is all about family.
And we'd like you to be a part of ours.
So our Chevy employee discount is now available to everyone.
You pay what we pay, and not a cent more.
We're so happy to share this with you.
It's our way of saying happy holidays.
And welcome to the family.
The Chevy family.
Use your employee discount for everyone and get a total value of over $9,000. Plus trade up to get an additional $2,000 cash allowance. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
All right, the House and the Senate working to reconcile their two tax bills. President Trump making his final pitch on tax reform. He's set to give a speech at the White House today on how the bill will help all Americans, he says. Polls show low approval for both plans, but GOP leaders promise big benefits if the final bill passes. They say they're still on track for a vote next week. But first, there's a lot of negotiating to be done. The latest round is centered on the corporate rate and if it will be cut to 22%, not 20% as promised. The president has conceded that could be a possibility, 22%. Doing so would create $200 billion in much-needed revenue over 10 years. That's because both bills propose big corporate tax cuts that add $1.5 trillion to the deficit with no guarantee it will add jobs or raise wages. However, it will spell big changes to your paycheck right away. If passed, several payroll provisions begin January 1, like how much tax is withheld from your paycheck, higher taxes on bonuses and commission, and many tax-free benefits become taxable, meaning you could pay more. In fact, employers have been imploring the White House and the Republican Congress to keep this in mind with how quickly they're going, how hard it will be for them to make some of these changes so quickly.
They are going to have to just light speed this thing through before Doug Jones is seated. This morning, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton expected to name a replacement for Senator Al Franken. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting he will choose his lieutenant governor, Tina Smith, as Minnesota's next U.S. senator. Sources say she plans to run for the seat in a special election next year. Franken announced last week his intention to resign after he was accused of improper conduct toward more than a half dozen women. With the selection of Tina Smith, Minnesota will now have 2 female senators for the first time in U.S. history, in Minnesota history. Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat, is, of course, the other one. That is an interesting development. One of the most reliably Republican states in the nation, Alabama, is blue this morning. Doug Jones defeating Roy Moore in a highly contested Alabama Senate race. The fallout for the president, what's in store for the 2018 midterms, and for the president's legislative agenda. Next.
Attention men with frequent urges to urinate. Super Beta Prostate has ingredients clinically tested to help reduce urges to urinate and waking at night to urinate. That's why it's the #1 best-selling prostate supplement in America. Don't wait. Try non-prescription Super Beta Prostate.
How can I help you today?
Yeah, I need to file a claim. My central air stopped working and needs to be replaced.
Oh, sorry, your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover air conditioners.
So what do you cover?
Well, home damage from things like earthquakes, volcanoes, a zombie apocalypse.
Zombie apocalypse.
Covered.
But not my air conditioner.
But his air conditioner would have been covered with a home warranty from American Home Shield. We cover major components of air conditioners and 20 other home systems and appliances, from electrical systems to water heaters and more. Homeowners insurance can cover what might happen.
Zombies are coming!
But award-winning American Home Shield helps cover what will happen.
Now the dryer won't work.
Get an American Home Shield home warranty. For valuable free information, call 1-800-554-1063. Be sure with the Shield. American Home Shield.
For drug-free sinus relief, experience Navage, the next big thing in nasal care. Navage is the only nose cleaner with powered suction to pull refreshing saline rinse in one nostril and out the other. Navage relieves congestion from allergies and colds naturally by flushing out allergens, mucus, dust, and germs.
I used to get so congested, but Navage cleans out all the stuff that makes me miserable so I can breathe again.
Now it's CVS Pharmacy, or for a risk-free trial, go to Navage.com.
What two items do you always have with you? Your phone and your wallet. Now they go even better together thanks to the Atomic Charge Wallet, the best wallet you'll ever own. And watch this, it can even charge your phone. That's right, the next time your phone starts to die at the worst possible moment, simply plug your Atomic Charge Wallet into your phone, instantly doubling its life. But that's just the beginning, because this is no ordinary wallet. It has a rugged aluminum case that can withstand drops and shocks, keeping its contents safe and undamaged. Yet it's so lightweight, it floats away with this balloon. The Atomic Charge Wallet also features an accordion design that easily holds all your cash, credit cards, pictures, license, and more. Yet it's so slim it can slip easily into a purse or pocket. But here's the best part. Every Atomic Charge Wallet is lined with the latest RFID blocking technology. Watch. This powerful scanner can't read the credit card inside. But put that same card in a leather wallet and it's completely unprotected. So let's review. The Atomic Charge Wallet holds everything you own, yet it's so slim it can slip easily into a purse or pocket. Protects it from accidents, plus electronic thieves, and it can even charge your phone. Here's how to get yours.
Act now to get your Atomic Charge Wallet for just $19.99. Perfect for men and women. But wait, order now and you can get a second one absolutely free. You heard that right. There's no additional charge to ship it to you. You can get two of these amazing Atomic Charge Wallets for one low price, just $19.99. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-503-6355 to get your buy one, get one absolutely free Atomic Charge Wallet. Call now or go to AtomicChargeWallet.com. So call 1-800-503-6355. That's 1-800-503-6355 or visit AtomicChargeWallet.com. Deluxe version and rush delivery available. Order now.
This holiday, the real gift isn't what's inside the box. It's what's inside the person who opens it. Give Ancestry DNA, the only DNA test that can trace your origins to over 150 ethnic regions and open up a world of possibilities. Save 30% for the holidays at AncestryDNA.com.
And now I just don't know what the hell to
say. For the first time in 25 years, a Democrat wins a Senate seat in deep red Alabama. Doug Jones with the major upset over Roy Moore. How is the president handling the defeat, and can Democrats carry this momentum into 2018? This is big international news, folks. Good morning. It is front page news in the UK, in France, in Spain, in Germany. Thanks for getting an early start with us. I'm Dave Briggs.
And certainly
Moore quoted scripture as he talked to his supporters, refusing to concede, telling them, quote, "It's not over and it's going to take some time." His campaign insisting a recount is possible depending on write-in and military ballots. But Alabama's state Republican Party says it's over. Alabama's Secretary of State says it is highly unlikely the outcome will change. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with CNN's Eric Bradner. Eric, good morning to you. How'd he do it?
Well, a big part of Jones' victory was massive turnout from African-American voters. According to CNN's exit polls, black voters made up 30% of the electorate here. That's a bigger share of the electorate than they made up in 2008 and 2012 presidential elections. That was a key focus of the Jones campaign in the closing days and weeks. They brought in civil rights icon John Lewis, the Georgia congressman, Cory Booker, the New Jersey senator, Charles Barkley, the NBA star, other African-American leaders, to try to turn out the black vote, and they were tremendously successful in that regard. Another key was suburbanites, people that typically vote Republican here in Alabama, either staying home or in some cases switching over and voting for Jones. Now, this is a recipe that Democrats hope they can replicate in the 2018 midterms. If it worked in Alabama, it could work in other more competitive states. The other element here is that candidate quality matters. Roy Moore was a uniquely controversial candidate, and he all but disappeared from the campaign trail the final week or so of the race, only holding a couple of events. President Trump, of course, tried to get him over the hurdle, but our exit polls found that even President Trump is not that popular anymore in Alabama. Only about half of the voters here approve of the job that he's doing, Dave.
That is stunning for a president that won Alabama by 28 points 1 year ago. All right, thank you, my friend. We'll check back with you next hour.
So President Trump was all in on Moore. Remember, he called him and said, "Go get him, Roy." When it was clear the Republican seat was lost, the president's reaction was tame by Trump standards. The president tweeting congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends.
But a White House source tells CNN the result is, quote, devastating for the president, describing it as an earthquake. The finger-pointing already underway with calls for the president to replace his political director, Bill Stepien. The president, Christine, has a great point about the write-in votes, which were larger than the margin in this election.
Right.
But those write-in votes, they showed up to just send a signal to say to the president, to say to the Republicans that we will not have this type of candidate represent our state.
22,000, right? Let's go live to Washington and bring in Sarah Westwood, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and from Los Angeles, political commentator Mo Kelly, host of the Mo Kelly Radio Show. And you talk about the none of the above votes here really tells you just how hard fought that race was. You know, Sarah, how important do you think it was that Senator Richard Shelby, the senior senator, Republican senator from the state, just yesterday, a couple days ago, said he was not voting for Roy Moore? How important was that to Alabamians?
I think it was probably a critical factor. Shelby is someone who obviously commands a lot of credibility and clout in the state of Alabama. The fact that most elected Republicans kept their distance from Roy Moore from the time of the first emergence of the allegations to Election Day probably played a factor. It was interesting that the president, the Republican president, was one of the only members of his party to re-engage with Roy Moore after those allegations surfaced. The RNC then began to put money and resources back into the race, but the NRSC did not re-engage in that race. Senator Mitch McConnell was never a fan of Roy Moore and even questioned as early as yesterday whether he would even allow Roy Moore to have committee assignments if he joined the U.S. Senate. So certainly the fact that most of the Republican Party remained aligned against Roy Moore up until Election Day dealt a blow to his chances.
Mo, millions of words in newspapers in this country and around the world will be dedicated to what happened last night. A book may someday be written about what happened last night in Alabama. But Jeff Flake, the Republican senator from Arizona, who has battled with the president, may have summed it up best with two words in a tweet: decency wins. Was decency, above all else, the biggest message taken away from this win?
It may be the biggest message, but I wouldn't say it's the only message. I would say the larger message is this president is in trouble in the sense that he's 0 for 3. I'm talking about Luther Strange, Ed Gillespie, and now Roy Moore. And in terms of what happens now, this is a big moment for the Democrats. You can say that they've generated some momentum, but I'm not so sure that it's a movement. And in terms of movement, now will Republican candidates and incumbents, will they run to the president or away from him as we go into 2018? And that would tell me more than anything else.
Yeah, I think the broader effect long-term for the Democrats remains to be seen on this on this state, but it is fascinating to think about. What about the legislative agenda, Sarah? Because you've got the president speaking this afternoon at the White House about tax reform. They want to get this done. They want a bill to the president next week on tax reform. Well, how does the legislative agenda play here?
Well, the White House must certainly be worried that the 52-seat majority that Republicans had is about to get one seat thinner as early as January when Doug Jones is expected to be seated. They can only lose one Republican now on any given policy moving forward, and that margin was already too thin to get Obamacare repeal over the finish line. Tax reform already had one Republican defector. It could have more once it comes out of conference. So certainly this has become a race against the clock for Republicans to pass tax reform before Doug Jones is seated. They already don't have a lot of wiggle room as it is. They can't really afford to lose any of their margin in the Senate right now when they're working with such a critical piece of legislation. So they're going to try to get this out of conference and onto the president's desk as soon as possible. And it's not just a symbolic deadline anymore to have it done by Christmas. Now it becomes a procedural one.
Just a week ago, Dave, you were hearing whispers from Republicans that they were so confident on tax reform they were going to look real quickly into next year on entitlement reform. You know, they wanted to move on to entitlements, and you wonder if maybe there's some cold water on some of that impetus.
You would have to think. And as we move beyond that in the Senate, Mo, Nevada, very much in play. Arizona, very much in play. If Democrats can hang on in West Virginia and North Dakota and Missouri, are we talking about the potential of a Chuck Schumer majority leader?
Well, the potential is there. I'm not sure the reality is there. There was the potential back in 2016, and we had a Republican-held majority, and also Donald Trump became president. The Democrats have to be careful not to get ahead of themselves. And yes, they won the game, but they haven't won the World Series, as they say. I would say that if you can demonstrate that you can flip Alabama and turn Alabama blue, then every seat is on the table after that.
Right, Tennessee, they have a very popular candidate the Democrats do in a former governor. It could be in play.
Guys, let's talk about women here for a minute, because this was the real storyline of the last couple of weeks, where all these women accusers coming out and talking about their interactions with him over the years. Before that, he was not an ideal candidate by Republican standards at all because of so many of the other things that he has said and done about gays, about African Americans and other groups that have been offended by his policies and things he has said. But women in particular, Sarah, when we look here at mothers, for example, so women, suburban women who have children under 18, 66% leaning toward Jones, 32% for Moore. But when you look overall, I think he overall won women, right? He overall won women, but when you look at women with children, he lost. What do you make of the gender breakdown here, Sarah?
Well, in the case of President Trump after the Access Hollywood tape, there was this suspicion among a lot of observers that President Trump could no longer win the election because women would defect from him en masse, and we didn't see that happen. So there was sort of an expectation heading into the Alabama race that Roy Moore could still win because women wouldn't necessarily abandon him over something that had to do with sexual misconduct. But certainly we saw that women helped put Doug Jones in the Senate seat. Some of them did, in fact, defect from Roy Moore. You can talk about the severity of the allegations against Roy Moore versus the severity of the allegations against President Trump, but we did see a different pattern when it came to women voters in Alabama than we did with Trump after the Access Hollywood tape.
But the African-American turnout really is the huge takeaway and decided this election, exceeding Obama levels. But it wasn't just the sexual misconduct, child molestation allegations. Roy Moore said in 2011, getting rid of the amendments after the 10th would eliminate many problems. That includes the amendment to abolish slavery. Charles Barkley came in, Cory Booker came in, and really rallied that vote. Mo, can they emulate that type of African-American turnout, passion, or anything close to it beyond Alabama?
Well, yes and no. Yes, if you can field more candidates in opposition like Roy Moore, but I mean, he was the genie in the bottle. He was a lightning strike. He was very specific. I mean, how many candidates are you going to have who are going to come out who are reminiscent of Bull Connor or maybe George Wallace? That's not going to happen again. So Democrats have to be careful not to be complacent. African American voters have to remember that it's not just this election, and we should be cautious not to ascribe the enthusiasm of what was going on in Alabama that it's going to naturally spread around the country. There's a long time between now and 2018, and also politics is still very local. The people voting in Alabama, probably one-issue voters like the rest of the country, but it does not mean that one issue is the same across the board. African Americans are not homogenous.
All right, Mo, Sarah, thank you so much, you guys. Really nice to see you this morning. Great analysis.
Appreciate it. Was the president making a sexual insinuation when he said a New York senator would, quote, do anything for campaign contributions? This morning, one editorial in a national newspaper says the president is not fit to clean toilets. More next.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I've been single for a long time because I'm always traveling.
Looking for a real relationship?
I love meeting new people, diving into different cultures. I'm not a game player. I like nice guys. So if you're out there, come find me.
Check out Match right now for free.
Hi, I'm Mike Ditka.
And I'm Johnny Bench.
And we spend our whole lives around professional sports taking hits.
And catching our fair share of aches and pains.
Which is why we use Blue Emu's pain relief products.
Blue Emu products, non-greasy, deep penetrating formula that works down into your muscles and joints and works its magic.
It's comfort that won't leave you smelling like a football gym bag.
Or an old catcher's mitt.
Or a shower mat in the locker room.
How about an old pair of socks after an extra inning game?
Blue Emu. It works fast and you won't stink.
Soft. Softer. And the world's softest ever. Introducing the world's softest pajamas from Pajamagram. What makes these pajamas the world's softest? The fleece lining is carefully brushed, which makes it both soft and warm, while the knit on the outside is silky smooth. She'll love the way the world's softest pajamas look and feel, and so will you. You can order these pajamas now in time for Christmas, and every package comes already wrapped, so you don't have to do another thing. And when she's happy, you're happy too. So go ahead and spoil her. Guys, give the gift that keeps on giving. Softness, comfort, and relaxation. Call or go online now at Pajamagram.com to order the world's softest pajamas today. Every order comes with free gift packaging and a personalized gift card. Delivery is guaranteed by Christmas. So order now at Pajamagram.com.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters. Ship packages. All the services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com/TV and never go to the post office again.
There's an exotic place where you can swim in the sky, where all the pleasures of a 5-star luxury vacation are all included. Sandals Grenada. Experience the sandals of tomorrow today. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Good evening, I'm Andy Cohen. What
are you doing?
Co-anchoring the news.
You're actually my co-host, but just on New Year's Eve. Get out of my chair.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, only on CNN.
Are you not wearing pants?
If you want to play an important role in your company and make an impact on your career, join the Spectrum team today. As a field technician for Spectrum, you'll represent the nation's fastest growing TV, internet, and voice company and help bring Spectrum services to the communities we serve. We offer a competitive salary, comprehensive benefits, complimentary services, and education reimbursement. Interested? Go to jobs.spectrum.com to see what's available in your area and apply today.
Imagine your life as a dental assistant, helping people feel better about their smile. Dental practices are growing. At Fortis, you can learn patient care, office, and lab duties. For hands-on training to prepare you for success, call Fortis now at 1-800-700-9111 or visit fortis.edu.
New day, the most sexual misconduct allegations against him. Now, Mr. Trump under fire for tweeting Gillibrand, quote, would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago, and here's the kicker here, would do anything for them.
I also like how begging is in quotation marks. I don't know what that means. Some of the punctuation, I don't know why he's putting that in quotation marks. The president's critics claim this is insinuating that the senator would accept sexual favors for financial support. This scathing indictment of Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board. Listen carefully. A president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. Or our disappointment in some of their decisions, Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful. More now from CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Good morning, Christine and Dave. President Trump has injected himself squarely in the middle of the sexual harassment.
And so no.
So Sanders pushing back on the fact that there was any sexual innuendo intended by the do anything remark. But as for Senator Gillibrand, she reacted strongly. To the president. She was on Capitol Hill, joined by other Democrats throughout the day, saying that President Trump simply cannot talk like this to Democratic senators or others.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice, and I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday, and neither will the millions of women who have been marching since the Women's March to stand up against policies they do not agree with.
So this back and forth puts President Trump again in the middle of this sexual harassment debate that's shaking the world of politics, media, and Hollywood. The president is saying he did not do what any of his accusers said. Now, many Democrats on Capitol Hill calling for his resignation or a congressional investigation into any of that. As for the White House, Sarah Sanders said the president would not participate in any type of an investigation on Capitol Hill into any of these allegations of wrongdoing. Dave and Christine.
Jeff Zeleny, thank you. A series of anti-Trump messages exchanged between top FBI employees released to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. One of those employees, Peter Strzok, was recently removed from the special counsel investigation into Russian election meddling. The messages spanned more than a year, including the election period.
The regulator has a message for investors.
As a quote,
buyer
idiot
beware.
And loathsome human being, among other insults. They also described the potential Trump victory as terrifying. And as supporters of the president will tell you, that's a major problem, not just for the special counsel, but of course he had a role in overseeing the Hillary Clinton email investigation as well.
Yeah, certainly not wise.
No,
all right, 51 minutes past the hour. Bitcoin. Another record high, this made-up internet currency, but the chief U.S. financial regulator has a message for investors. Buyer beware. Details on CNN Money Stream next.
Hi, I'm the one clocking in when you're clocking out, sensing your every move and automatically adjusting to help you stay effortlessly comfortable. I can even help with a silent night.
This is a statewide test of the Ohio Emergency Alert System, originating from the State Emergency Operations Center in Columbus. This is only a test. The Ohio Emergency Alert System has been designed to provide the public with timely warnings and emergency information. Had this been an actual emergency, you would have received instructions and information related to that emergency over this and other stations in your area. This concludes this test of the Ohio Emergency Alert System.
infection, tears in the stomach or intestines, low blood cell counts, and higher liver tests and cholesterol levels have happened. Your doctor should perform blood tests before you start and while taking Xeljanz XR and monitor certain liver tests. Tell your doctor if you are in a region where fungal infections are common and if you have had TB, hepatitis B or C, or are prone to infections. Xeljanz XR can reduce the symptoms of RA even without methotrexate. Ask your rheumatologist about Xeljanz XR.
Need new floors? Empire Today makes getting beautiful new floors easy. Impossible? Let me show you. Empire brings hundreds of samples to you. We call it Shop at Home. The floors are high quality and come with great warranties. Plus, Empire handles the installation. You don't lift a finger, and the job's done right. Shop at Home, quality floors, professional installation. That's Empire Today.
800-588-2300 Empire
Today.
Okay, be good, kiddo. I gotta go to work. Bye.
Dog home alone all day without a walk? Introducing WAG, the on-demand dog walking app. Get a fully vetted, experienced dog walker at a moment's notice. He'll give your dog the affection and attention they deserve. WAG has live GPS tracking and tells you where they mark their territory.
My dog pooped.
Get your first walk free when you download the app now.
Good evening, I'm Andy Cohen.
What are you doing?
Co-anchoring the news.
You're actually my co-host, but just on New Year's Eve. Get out of my chair.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, only on CNN.
Are you not wearing pants?
Celebrate a Cincinnati holiday tradition with Scuba Santa. Explore his water wonderland and this year's new tropical retreat, Stingray Hideaway, where you'll touch magical stingrays. As a special gift from Scuba Santa, adults get in for the same price as kids, an $8 savings. You must purchase tickets online in advance by December 25th and use them through Christmas Day. Merry Christmas from Newport Aquarium, where it's 74 degrees all winter long.
Alarm off. Let's go. Quick to start and slow to quit. You've made a life. Sometimes messy, always remarkable. You wouldn't change a thing, so you keep going. Providing, nurturing, pushing, and planning. America was built because heroes like you have the courage to get out of bed in the morning. When the lights are out and the work is done, we'll be there for you. You can count on it. The Original Mattress Factory. Get a good night's sleep. You've earned it.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Welcome back. This morning, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton expected to name a replacement for Senator Al Franken. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting he will choose his Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith as Minnesota's next U.S. Senator. Sources say she plans to run for the seat in a special election next year. Franken announced last week his intention to resign after he was accused of improper conduct toward more than a half a dozen women. With the selection of Tina Smith, Minnesota will have 2 female senators for the first time in history.
All right, thousands of firefighters finally making headway against the huge Thomas fire in Southern California. Officials say the blaze is now 25% contained. Winds have decreased to 15 to 25 miles an hour. It's, of course, the winds that have been fueling the tinder dry region. The Thomas fire has burned some 236,000 acres. Red flag warnings are now confined to the mountains of Los Angeles and Ventura counties, covering just over 1 million residents. At the peak last week, nearly 20 million people were affected.
San Francisco's Board of Supervisors setting a June 5th date for a special election to replace Mayor Ed Lee, who died on Tuesday. Lee's sudden death coming just hours after he appeared at an event at a city hospital. According to Congressman Nancy Pelosi, the 65-year-old Lee suffered a heart attack the night before while he was grocery shopping. Board of Supervisors President London Breed has been named acting mayor.
All right, let's get a check on CNN Money Stream this morning. Global stocks mostly lower after another record high on Wall Street. Bank stocks pushing the Dow and the S&P 500 to all-time highs. The Nasdaq closed lower on a dip in tech stocks. The 2-day meeting of the Federal Reserve concludes today. The central bank is expected to raise interest rates. It would be the 3rd hike this year. It also marks the last meeting for that woman, current Fed Chair Janet Yellen. Her term ends in February. Bitcoin just hit its own new record high, closing in on 20 grand for one of these little made-up internet coins. The chief U.S. financial regulator has a message for investors: buyer beware. The SEC chairman, Jay Clayton, is urging extreme caution with virtual currencies, warning investors to be wary if a promoter guarantees returns, if an opportunity sounds too good to be true, if you are pressured to act quickly. Clayton added that Bitcoin is not registered with the SEC. Unlike traditional, established, recognized currencies, these virtual coins aren't tied to a central bank. Ticket sales are strong with The Last Jedi. I can't wait. Star Wars The Last Jedi doesn't come out until Friday, but it's already become the top advanced ticket seller of the year. That's according to Fandango. The Last Jedi toppled another Disney production, Beauty and the Beast, for the top spot. It is on track for an opening weekend in the 200 million range. A huge number, but it may not beat the previous Star Wars film. The Force Awakens had the biggest box office opening in movie history. Are your kids Star Wars fans?
They are, but I think this is a little beyond them. They're more into whatever's coming out for Christmas. And Rotten Tomatoes is into it, though. 93%. Okay. Pretty good reviews so far.
I haven't seen Coco yet either. Coco is the other sleeper hit that is making tons of money.
Well, that one has a 97%.
A ton of so, all right.
Okay, Early Start continues right now with this massive political earthquake in Alabama.
I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
The seismic shift in the U.S. Senate. Doug Jones, the first Democrat to win in Alabama in a quarter century of change. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with CNN's Eric Bradner. Eric, how did Doug Jones get it done?
Well, Dave, first and foremost, he won with a huge African-American turnout. Black voters, according to CNN's exit polls, made up 30% of the electorate. That's a bigger share of the electorate than they did in 2008 and 2012 presidential elections. This was a huge focus of the Jones campaign in the run-up to the election. He brought in a lot of African-American leaders to campaign for him, including John Lewis, the Georgia congressman, civil rights icon, Cory Booker, the New Jersey senator, Charles Barkley, the basketball star, and others. And this was really his focus, and it paid off. Another important element for the Jones campaign was suburbanites either staying at home, lower turnout, or in some cases crossing over and voting for Jones. This is a recipe that Democrats hope they can repeat in other states in the 2018 midterms. But the other element here is that Roy Moore was a uniquely controversial candidate. And not only that, he disappeared from the campaign trail for the last week or so. He only held 2 events and went out of state for a couple of days. The president tried to get him over the hump. President Trump tweeted on Moore's behalf and campaigned near Alabama on Friday night. But CNN's exit polls showed that even President Trump is not as popular as he once was, with only about half the voters here in Alabama saying they approve of the job he's doing.
Donald Trump won the state by 28 points 1 year ago. Eric Bradner live for us this morning in Alabama. Thanks.
President Trump was all in on Roy Moore. When it was clear the Republican seat was lost, his reaction was tame by Trump standards. The president tweeting congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends.
But a White House source tells CNN the result is, quote, devastating for the president, describing it as a, quote, earthquake. Finger pointing already underway with calls for the president to replace his political director, Bill Stepien.
All right, let's talk about this race. Let's go live to Washington, bring in CNN politics reporter Tal Kopin. And Sarah Westwood is back with us. She's the White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. And Tal, as we go through all of these exit polls, trying to find out what was motivating the people in Alabama, what do you see? What tipped him over the edge, Doug Jones?
I think it's a combination of factors, as Eric was describing. It's almost sort of the perfect storm that Doug Jones needed to pull off this victory. You have the combination of the heavy African-American turnout. You have apparently a bit of lackluster performance among Republicans. Some folks who just couldn't bring themselves to vote for Roy Moore either stayed home or, as we see, a heavy number of write-ins. And so it seems to be a swirl of those factors, the president's unpopularity. It's really hard to pin this on one thing, but it seems that exactly what Doug Jones needed, all those factors came together last night.
Sarah, decency wins was the message from Republican Senator Jeff Flake, who did donate to Doug Jones. To you, what is the message that Alabama sent last night?
Well, certainly, like Tal mentioned, this was obviously a deeply flawed candidate in Roy Moore. This is someone who was always going to have trouble. Set aside the fact that he was accused of sexual misconduct involving teenagers. He had said some controversial things in the past, taken some positions throughout his career that had made him a very inflammatory choice from the very beginning for Republicans. And so I think what you'll see from the party and even from the White House over the next few days is to lay this defeat squarely at the feet of Roy Moore. They don't want to pin this on the president. They're not going to want to pin this on problems plaguing the party at large throughout the country. They're going to want to say that this defeat was because Roy Moore was a flawed candidate and for no other reason. And so I think you'll try to see the party contain the loss to Roy Moore's personal flaws.
I'm trying to, especially since there's this whole Me Too movement and this sort of reckoning for women at work that we've seen this year. It's interesting to try to drill down and see what was the impact of the sexual misconduct allegations against this candidate. When you break it down, exit polls, people were asked, are sexual misconduct allegations against Moore marginal, definitely true, probably false, or definitely false? You can see how that definitely true. Only 26% said definitely true, and 27% said probably false. One wonders just what was the factor, Tal, of those allegations, or if Roy Moore was not a palatable candidate in the first place.
Before those allegations.
Yeah, I think both are true. There's no doubt that Roy Moore has a history of being an extremely controversial figure. You know, popular in Alabama to an extent, but not, without flaws in his political record in Alabama. And so that was already there. It is stunning to see how many people thought the allegations were false. And when you split that by partisanship, it is incredibly lopsided in terms of whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you believe the allegations that were levied against him. But you can't say they were not a factor. When you look at those numbers, more than half, roughly half, said it was probably true or definitely true. And so when you have that many people in the electorate having that on their minds, you see the results at the polls.
All right, Sarah, just a year ago, the president won there by 28 points. Now, it's an environment in which the president supported Luther Strange in Alabama, lost. Supported Ed Gillespie as governor of Virginia, lost. And now, third time is the charm. The president is, above all else, and always has been, always will be, a brander. What is the Trump brand where we sit today?
Well, certainly the White House will be reevaluating its strategy for choosing candidates to support, and you might see the series of episodes that you just mentioned encourage the White House to be a little more cautious about the outreach that they do on behalf of Republican candidates in 2018. They don't want these losses to continue to reflect poorly on the credibility of the president, on the clout of the president with his base. This is going to raise questions naturally about whether he can still command the support of his base, because he was down in Pensacola, right in the backyard of Alabama, and couldn't quite get Roy Moore over the finish line. So you may see the White House political director's role being questioned, and you may see questions about the formula the White House is using to choose its candidates in the primaries and general elections next year.
Just to be clear, someone may get fired, but this, according to all accounts, was the president on his own, with no encouragement from anyone in the White House, even against the words of his daughter, going all in on Roy Moore.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make. You know, elections have consequences, and elections also mean policy. policy. And Sarah, I'm wondering what you think this means for the president and his push for tax reform. And when we look out to next year, they were talking about infrastructure. Just a few days ago, Republicans were excited about the prospect of a quick win on taxes and moving on to entitlement reform. When you look at the balance of power, there is there's no margin for error.
Absolutely not. I think Republicans are going to now recognize that the clock is ticking on tax reform. They had a self-imposed deadline of getting this done by the end of the year. President Trump has described tax reform as a Christmas present to America. But now they have a procedural deadline facing them, with Doug Jones likely to be seated in January. So they know they need to get this done as quickly as possible, because once Doug Jones is seated, they will only have a 51-seat majority in the U.S. Senate, meaning they can only afford to lose one Republican on any given policy moving forward. They lost 3 on health care. They lost 1 on tax reform. On big major legislative issues, they're just not going to have a lot of wiggle room to play around with next year.
And because of that, Tull, what does this do to the influence of people like John McCain, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, Susan Collins moving forward?
Yeah, just to name a few, I think you're absolutely right that individual members of the Republican conference now have an incredible amount of influence over the shape of policy, because, as Sarah said, they can only lose 1 vote. And if they do, then the vice president is able to break that tie anymore, and they cannot even pass. And that's just, to be clear, that's just the legislation that they're able to move through this procedural technique called reconciliation. That's not even speaking of bigger packages of legislation where now they're going to have to win 9 Democrats to move things forward. And so there's absolutely no margin for error. And that does.
This morning, thank you for your expert analysis. Great to see you. Get a cup of coffee. Come back in a few minutes. All right, was the president making a sexual insinuation when he said a New York senator would, quote, do anything for campaign contributions? This morning, one editorial says the president is not even fit to clean toilets. Oh, it's quite an op-ed. We have that next.
The finest luxury items from the world's top designers, including Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Cartier, and hundreds more. All at up to 90% off retail, and each authenticated by our team of experts. Real luxury, unreal value, only at The Real Real. Shop now and get 20% off with the code REAL at therealreal.com and in our New York City store.
A better back and a better body. Since 1981, that has been my passion. I created Teeter Hang-Ups so people could live healthier, more active lives. I know what it's like to have back pain. When I found Inversion, it changed my life forever, and I believe it can change yours. I am proud to present the newest and best Teeter Hang-Ups. Teeter is easy to use. Simply set it, lock it, recline, and relax. Just 3 to 5 minutes a day in your own home to help relieve back pain, relieve stress, improve posture, rejuvenate joint health, and build core strength.
The Teeter offers relief from back pain, naturally targeting the source of the ache by relaxing tense muscles and providing decompression that can help to restore the nutrients to the discs, reduce nerve pressure, and realign the spine.
I can get on it, hang upside down for 10 or 15 minutes, get up, and my back pain is gone. It's amazing.
Instantly, I was feeling the effects from it. My lower back was feeling better in the mornings, and I just kind of felt rejuvenated getting off it every day.
Medical and scientific studies around the world have shown the benefits of inversion, and over 2 million people have put their trust in Teeter for a better back and a better body. I'm over 72, and I feel great.
Teeter meets UL's tough consumer safety testing standard. No one else even comes close to Teeter quality and performance. Now you can try the latest Teeter in your home for 30 days for only $14.95 with free shipping. We'll also include 2 of our most popular accessories, which add acupressure massage and deepens the lumbar stretch. Plus, you'll receive the Healthy Back and Core system. But that is not all. If you call now, we'll also upgrade your order to free expedited processing.
This thing is mine. You can't have it. It's one of my most valuable possessions. It really is.
Trust Teeter Hang-Ups for a better back, better body.
He's a NASCAR champion who's faced thousands of drivers. She's a world-class swimmer who stared down the best in her sport. But for both of them, the most challenging opponent was
PE blood clots in my lung.
It was really scary.
A DVT in my leg.
I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
My doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Xarelto is a latest generation blood thinner that's proven to treat and reduce the risk of DVT and PE blood clots from happening again. In clinical studies, almost 98% of patients on Xarelto did not experience another DVT or PE.
Here's how Xarelto works.
Xarelto works differently. Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of blood clots. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
You've got to learn all you can
to help protect yourself from DVT and PE blood clots. Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
The president's tweets triggering controversy again. He's attacking New York's Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand after she called on him to resign over the sexual misconduct allegations against him. Now, Mr. Trump getting slammed for tweeting Gillibrand, quote, would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them.
Now, many people read that and thought that was an insinuation that the senator would accept sexual favors for financial support. This scathing indictment from Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board. Listen to this. A president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. This isn't about the policy differences we have with all presidents or our disappointment in some of their decisions. Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful. More now from CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Good morning, Christina Dave. President Trump has injected himself squarely in the middle of the sexual harassment debate once again, going after, in a personal way, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, calling her a lightweight who would, quote, do anything for political contributions. This prompted this uproar over what the president meant by do anything for contributions. At the White House briefing on Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said this.
Many, including the senator, thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way, and so no.
So Sanders pushing back on the fact that there was any sexual innuendo intended by the do anything remark. But as for Senator Gillibrand, she reacted strongly to the president. She was on Capitol Hill, joined by other Democrats throughout the day, saying that President Trump simply cannot talk like this to Democratic senators or others.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice. And I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday, and neither will the millions of women who have been marching since the Women's March to stand up against policies they do not agree with.
So this back and forth puts President Trump again in the middle of this sexual harassment debate that's shaking the world of politics, media, and Hollywood. The president is saying he did not do what any of his accusers said. Now, many Democrats on Capitol Hill calling for his resignation or a congressional investigation into any of that. As for the White House, Sarah Sanders said the president would not participate in any type of an investigation on Capitol Hill into any of these allegations of wrongdoing. Dave and Christine.
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thanks. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announcing the U.S. is ready for talks with North Korea without preconditions. Not exactly in line with the president's position. He made the remarks Tuesday at the Atlantic Council in Washington. Tillerson making it clear if North Korea makes bad choices, the U.S. is prepared to act.
We're ready to talk anytime they'd like to talk. But they have to come to the table, and they have to come to the table with a view that they do want to make a different choice. In the meantime, our military preparedness is strong. I will continue our diplomatic efforts until the first bomb drops.
Pyongyang has dramatically ramped up the pace of its military program in 2017. Since February, the regime has fired off 23 missiles.
All right, President Trump making his final pitch today on tax reform. He promises big benefits for years to come. but the bill could have an immediate impact on your paycheck. Details next.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I've been single for a long time because I'm always traveling.
Looking for a real relationship?
I love meeting new people, diving into different cultures. I'm not a game player. I like nice guys. So if you're out there, come find me.
Check out Match right now for free.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the services of the post office right on your computer? Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/TV and never go to the post office again.
Wouldn't it be great to go on a luxury vacation where everything's included and unlimited?
Introducing Color Doctor, the clinic, and press the start button. In less than 1 minute, Color Doctor is high.
It's green, yellow.
That's one for you and one for a loved one. Don't take your health for granted. Order.
Call now or go to buycolordoctor.com. So call 1-800-719-6770. That's 1-800-719-6770. Deluxe version and rush delivery available. Call now.
10 everyday heroes. One amazing night. Join us for CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute, hosted by Anderson Cooper and Kelly Ripa, live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
That thing you do every day, it matters. That's why you need a network you can rely on. We are Spectrum Enterprise, and we deliver the network and cloud services vital to your enterprise. Our experts work with you. We get to know your business. We design and deliver a solution that's reliable, scalable, and now more accessible than ever before. Because that thing you do every day, it matters. Spectrum Enterprise.
The Ford year-end sales event is in full swing.
Hey, Santa Claus is coming. 'Tis the season.
No, that's him in my blind spot.
He is rocking that scooter.
With a sidecar.
Doesn't need reindeer, baby.
Making the holidays happen. That's Ford, America's best-selling brand. Now get a Super Duty with up to $4,000 total cash. That's $4,000 during the Ford year-end sales event. Going on now at your local Ford store.
Is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
All right, the House and the Senate working hard to reconcile their two different tax bills. President Trump is making his final pitch on tax reform. He is set to give a speech at the White House today on how the bill will help all Americans. Polls show low approval for both plans, but GOP leaders promise big benefits if the final bill passes. And they say they're still on track for a vote next week. It's going very quickly, and we still don't have this reconciled version yet. We don't know exactly what it will look like. First, there's a lot of negotiating to be done. The latest round is centered on the corporate rate, if it'll be cut to 22%, not 20% as promised. The president has raised the possibility that he'd be okay with 22%. Doing that would create $200 billion in much-needed revenue over 10 years. That's because both bills propose big corporate tax cuts that add $1.5 trillion to the deficit with no guarantee it will add jobs or raise wages. However, it will spell big changes to your check right away. Past several options begin January 1, like how much tax is withheld from your paycheck, higher taxes on bonuses and commission, and many tax-free benefits become taxable, meaning you could pay more.
This morning, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton is expected to name a replacement for Senator Al Franken. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting he'll choose his lieutenant governor, Tina Smith, as Minnesota's next U.S. senator. Sources say she plans to run for a seat in a special election next year. Franken announced last week his intention to resign after he was accused of improper conduct toward more than a half a dozen women.
San Francisco's Board of Supervisors setting a June 5th date for a special election to replace Mayor Ed Lee, who died Tuesday. Lee's sudden death coming just hours after he appeared at an event at a city hospital. According to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, the 65-year-old Lee suffered a heart attack the night before while he was grocery shopping. Board of Supervisors President London Breed has been named acting mayor.
All right, one of the most reliably Republican states in the nation, from red to blue this morning. Doug Jones defeats Roy Moore in a highly contested Alabama Senate race. The fallout for the president and what's in store for the midterms and the president's legislative agenda as well. Next on Early Start.
A better back and a better body. Since 1981, that has been my passion. I created Teeter Hang-Ups so people could live healthier, more active lives. I know what it's like to have back pain. When I found Inversion, it changed my life forever, and I believe it can change yours. I am proud to present the newest and best Teeter Hang-Ups. Teeter is easy to use. Simply set it, lock it, recline, and relax. Just 3 to 5 minutes a day in your own home to help relieve back pain, relieve stress, improve posture, rejuvenate joint health, and build core strength.
The Teeter offers relief from back pain, naturally targeting the source of the ache by relaxing tense muscles and providing decompression that can help to restore the nutrients to the discs, reduce nerve pressure, and realign the spine.
I can get on it, hang upside down for 10 or 15 minutes, get up, and my back pain is gone. It's amazing.
Instantly, I was feeling the effects from it. My lower back was feeling better in the mornings, and I just kind of felt rejuvenated getting off it every day.
Medical and scientific studies around the world have shown the benefits of inversion, and over 2 million people have put their trust in Teeter for a better back and a better body. I'm over 72, and I feel great.
Teeter meets UL's tough consumer safety testing standard. No one else even comes close to Teeter quality and performance. Now you can try the latest Teeter in your home for 30 days for only $14.95 with free shipping. We'll also include 2 of our most popular accessories, which add acupressure massage. You'll receive the guided processing. This thing for a better back, better body.
Experience Navage, the next big thing in nasal care. Navage is the only nose saline rinse in one nostril and out the other.
I was off, but now that I'm getting older, my body is starting to slow down. That's because after the age of 40, your body produces less free testosterone, making it harder to get in shape. Thankfully, I found Alpha King from Force Factor.
And now, every man in America can claim a complimentary bottle of Alpha King by texting BUZZ to 809-809. Force Factor was recently named GNC's Breakout Brand of the Year, and Alpha King is their latest scientific innovation. It contains an exclusive new male vitality ingredient to help boost free testosterone, delivering more energy and more lean muscle during workouts. Soon, everyone will notice the new you.
I couldn't believe the results I achieved with Alpha King. I feel like a new man, and you can too.
If you're ready to up your game, claim a complimentary bottle by texting BUZZ to 809-809. That's BUZZ to 809-809.
Hi, I'm Johnny Bench. After a Hall of Fame career, it's no wonder why I use Blue Emu Arthritis Cream. Blue Emu's non-greasy, deep penetrating formula gets down deep into those joints for big-time pain relief. Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink.
At the end of the day, there's nothing better than a glass of wine, especially that first sip. The taste is so important, and wine just doesn't taste as good a day after it's been opened. What if you didn't actually have to open the bottle at all? With my Coravin, I never need to pull the cork. I simply insert the needle, tip, and pour. The cork reseals to preserve the rest of the bottle for months or even years. At home, relaxing with a glass of wine or entertaining friends, just insert, tip, and pour. Buy Coravin at these fine retailers.
All my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
For the first time in 25 years, a Democrat wins a Senate seat in deep red Alabama. Doug Jones with the major upset over Roy Moore. How's the president handling the defeat? And can Democrats carry that momentum into 2018? Welcome back to Early Start this morning. I'm Christine Romans.
I'm Dave Briggs. 4:30 Eastern Time, 3:30 in the center of the political universe. That's the state of Alabama, where Democrat Doug Jones turned deep red Alabama blue, capping off a long shot campaign with a stunning win over Republican Roy Moore in last night's Senate race. Jones taking 49.9% of the vote, 1.5 points ahead of Moore, who could not overcome sexual misconduct allegations in a very controversial past.
Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past, and unfortunately we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road. As Dr. King liked to quote, The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Moore quoted scripture to his supporters, refusing to concede, telling them it's not over and it's going to take some time. His campaign insisting a recount is possible depending on write-in and military ballots, but Alabama's state Republican Party says it's over, and Alabama's Secretary of State says it is highly unlikely the outcome in this race will change. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with our very own Eric Bradner. Good morning. What tilted, Eric, this race to Doug Jones?
Christine, the biggest factor was huge African-American turnout. This was a big focus of the Jones campaign, and CNN's exit polls found that 30% of the electorate was black. Now, that's a higher share of the electorate than President Obama got in 2008 and 2012. So that was a big factor. The Jones campaign had brought in John Lewis, the Georgia congressman and civil rights icon, Cory Booker, the New Jersey senator, Charles Barkley, the former Auburn University, an NBA basketball star, and other African-American leaders to really get out the vote in key urban areas in the final days and weeks, and it turned out to work. Another focus of the Jones campaign was suburbanize. Democrats hoped that some of these Republican-leaning voters would either stay home or vote for Jones. They ended up getting just enough, and that could be a recipe for success for Democrats in the 2018 midterms. We've seen this now in a couple of elections in Virginia and now Alabama. So it could be a way that Democrats could win elsewhere on the map next year. Now, the other candidate, he all final week of the race, even leaving the state over the final weekend. President Trump tried to carry him over the hurdle, but it didn't quite work, in part because our exit polls found that the
extraordinarily tame by Trump standards. The president tweeting, quote, Al Kopin and Sarah Westwood, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Good to see you both. This was largely on the backs of female voters and African-American turnout, to Eric's point, exceeding that of Obama-level numbers, which is a shocker. What's the biggest takeaway for you, Sarah, as to what happened last night?
Well, certainly the White House is going to try to limit this defeat to the flaws of Roy Moore. Republicans who backed him are going to say that the reason Doug Jones is headed to the United States Senate is because Roy Moore was terribly controversial. He was bad at campaigning. He faced these allegations of sexual misconduct. They're not going to want to admit that this reflects any broader trends that the Republican Party may face in 2018, or they don't want to admit that this could be the harbinger of a Democratic wave that we could see in the midterms. So I think that the takeaway Republicans will have is that this was just a confluence of events that we may never see again that put Doug Jones in Congress.
Yeah, we just heard Eric Bradner, our reporter, call him a uniquely controversial candidate, and I think that is a really great way to look at it. We've never sort of seen that combination line up before. And Tal, when you look at breaking down the vote, you saw that African-American turnout was very robust for Doug Jones. Women went for Doug Jones, although interestingly enough, white women leaned toward Roy Moore, which is an interesting, I guess, a breakdown. But tell me a little bit about how you think the sexual misconduct allegations and gender played a role in this result.
Well, Christine, there's no denying that they were a major factor. It's simply impossible to ignore as an element of the race. One element, to be sure, but it's there. And, when you looked at the exit polls of people who said that they believed the allegations, they were heavily split by party affiliation. Democrats were much more likely to believe the allegations than Republicans. But even overall, among the electorate, roughly half, just over, believed that they might be true. And that's a huge number. And, you said white women did split for Roy Moore, but certainly not by the numbers that he would have needed to carry that state. And, African American definitely split for Doug Jones. So, when you have this national conversation, when you have a gender gap, when you have historically high African American turnout, all those factors combined with Republican apathy or even distaste, just being unable to vote for Roy Moore. It was sort of a perfect storm for Doug Jones. And, you know, while I take Sarah's point absolutely that this is in some ways an isolated election, you can absolutely believe Democrats are going to take heart from this fundraising, lessons on turning out the vote. It's not quite as isolated as it may seem to Alabama.
So interesting that the Senator Richard Shelby, the senior Republican senator of the state, said he did not vote for Roy Moore, and he said that before the election. It looks as though his role as an Alabamian was a bigger influence than the president's as a leader of the Republican Party.
Jeff Sessions wouldn't admit who he voted for, so he would not publicly say, I voted for Roy Moore. It was his seat in the first place. So here we are. This is a special election in the state of Alabama, and it is not just front page news in Alabama or New York or LA. It is around the world. We are seeing front page news in the UK, in France, in Germany, and it is the #1 trending topic worldwide. Sarah, what is the message sent to President Trump? Because that's what all the international papers are running with. This is a blow to the President of the United States.
Absolutely. I think the White House may be reconsidering the decision to back Roy Moore late in the race. I think the White House reviewed polling that suggested that Roy Moore could still eke out a victory after the allegations of sexual misconduct surfaced, and that's when you saw President Trump decide to endorse Roy Moore, first on Twitter, then with a phone call, then in speaking to reporters, and finally flying down to Pensacola for a rally and recording a robocall. There's no way that the White House can walk away from the fact that they did go all in for Roy Moore. They could have stood on the sidelines. They could have limited their endorsement to just the tweet. They could have done any number of things that would have limited their exposure in the case that we're seeing now with a Roy Moore defeat. But now this reflects poorly on the White House's credibility. It raises questions about the role President Trump can or should play in 2018, and they may be rethinking the strategy they pursued in this race.
Tall along those lines, Luther Strange, Ed Gillespie, Roy Moore.
Third time's a charm.
All endorsed by this president, all lost.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, you know, this is going to have ramifications all over the place. It makes, you know, we're seeing an international reaction that it reflects poorly on Donald Trump, but this is going to reflect poorly on him in Washington. Keep in mind, he's still trying to muscle an agenda through Congress, and very slowly this year, they still haven't scored a major legislative accomplishment. And if Republicans feel that being tied to the president is a drag at the ballot box, that is absolutely going to change their calculus now, with, as we're seeing, a razor-thin majority in the Senate once Doug Jones is seated on what was already thin. So, you know, you call this election a shockwave. It is absolutely a shockwave and a warning sign for the White House. If they're perceived as, you know, a weight on Republicans' neck, it's going to be very difficult for them to have impact on legislative efforts in moving things through Congress.
And could be the nail in the coffin on Steve Bannon's war on incumbent Republicans. We shall see. No comment from Steve Bannon thus far today. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. Stick around. We're going to ask you about what the president tweeted about Kirsten Gillibrand in just a bit.
Was he making a sexual insinuation when he said a New York senator would do anything for campaign contributions? This morning, one editorial says the president isn't fit to clean toilets. Wait till you listen to this one next.
Attention men with frequent urges to urinate. Super Beta Prostate has ingredients clinically tested to help reduce urges to urinate and waking at night to urinate. That's why it's the #1 best-selling prostate supplement in America. Don't wait. Try non-prescription Super Beta Prostate.
Looks like you're not sleeping well.
Yeah. How did you know? Megan!
What? Hey! You're that guy!
The My Pillow guy!
That's right, and I'm here to help you get the best sleep of your lives. Oh, you have a down pillow. Here's the problem with down pillows. You lay there, you feel comfortable, and guess what? It goes down, and you got one bent neck. So this pillow's no good, and I see you sleeping on memory foam.
Right.
Well, I'll show you what's wrong with that idea.
Okay.
Sleep's all about too high or too low, and I'm going to show you where your comfort level would be.
So, you know, that feels better.
Right, that's better, but I'm not going to sit and hold this all day. So every morning you're getting up like, you know, it's not good. Just like all of you out there, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and none of them worked. That's why I invented My Pillow.
My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck aligned. My pillow will hold its shape all night long, regardless of your sleep position, for the best sleep of your life.
It feels great to wake up in the morning and feel well rested. It's shocking to me that a pillow could make this big of a difference in my life.
I make all my pillows in my home state of Minnesota, and I back them with my 60-day money-back guarantee. My pillow has a 10-year warranty and is machine washable and dryable. Sleep is one of the most important things to your health, and My Pillow is one of the most important things to your sleep.
Call or go online to order My Pillow Premium, and Mike will give you a second pillow absolutely free. Use the promo code on your screen to get 2 My Pillows for the price of 1. Don't delay. Order now.
You're sleeping better.
Much better.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Art to me is anything that can provoke an emotion. Fashion is the same. It's creating things that I find beautiful. I love expressing myself through my clothing. Our clothes have elements that show that it's a very rich history, a very rich culture. I hope that we change people's minds about what it is to be Saudi. Vision 2030 is helping that. It gives us such pride to have a Made in Saudi Arabia label on our clothes.
Good evening, I'm Andy Cohen.
What are you doing?
Co-anchoring the news.
You're actually my co-host, but just on New Year's Eve. Get out of my chair.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, only on CNN.
Are you not wearing pants?
Every year, we survey other funeral homes' prices.
And here they are, Dad. Over 100 price lists.
That is a lot of surveys. And the highest price, over $7,000.
And look at that average, over $4,500.
I don't understand why everyone charges so much. At Newcomer, our price is just $26.95.
And our family satisfaction, over 98%.
Cremations and funerals of the highest quality can be expensive.
But not at Newcomer.
It's time to rake in the savings at Grismer Tire. Now through December 16th, get a $50 Kroger gift card instantly when you purchase a set of 4 eligible Bridgestone or Firestone tires. As always, buy a set of any 4 tires at Grismer and get a year of free oil changes for your vehicle, plus lifetime balancing and rotation. That's a $50 Kroger gift card when you purchase a set of 4 eligible Bridgestone or Firestone tires. Hurry into your locally owned Grismer Tire, your automotive maintenance and repair experts.
Anderson Cooper 360, tonight at 8 Eastern on CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-900-0202.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now for free information.
Stop me if you've heard this before. The president's tweets stirring up controversy, this time for attacking New York's Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She is calling for the president's resignation, citing the sexual misconduct allegations against him. Now, Mr. Trump being roundly criticized for tweeting Gillibrand, quote, would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them.
Also a bunch of other insults in there, too, but that really got people's attention because his critics claim he was insinuating the senator would accept sexual favors for financial support. This scathing indictment of Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board. Listen to this. A president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. This isn't about the policy differences we have with all presidents or our disappointment in some of their decisions. Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful.
Highly unusual from the USA Today. Let's bring back Tal Copeland and Sarah Westwood for some reaction to that presidential tweet about Kirsten Gillibrand. And Sarah, is this an overreaction by Trump critics?
Obviously, Democrats are going to try to read the most negative interpretation of that tweet into it that they can. That's what you saw Senator Elizabeth Warren do when she was the first one to come out and sort of apply this sexual context to what President Trump was saying. The RNC later in the day tried to provide some cover for President Trump by blasting out a list of issues on which Senator Gillibrand has flip-flopped on over the years, suggesting that maybe what President Trump meant was that her campaign contributions have dictated her positions on different policy issues. So the White House is saying that President Trump did not mean to imply anything sexual about Senator Gillibrand, but it's not surprising that some of President Trump's Democratic critics are interpreting it in the most negative way possible.
Just to be clear, Rick Santorum, a staunch supporter of the president, was on CNN yesterday saying he too had the same reaction as many Trump critics.
In terms of the dollars, by the way, the president at the time, who was not the president, did give Kirsten Gillibrand's campaign's money of
more than $8,000.
Yeah, $4,800 in 2010 to her Senate campaign, and $2,100 in 2007. So this is the Republican president who was giving money.
Longtime Democratic donor.
Longtime. Just a reminder, he's a longtime Democratic donor. Let's listen to what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said about this very issue yesterday, and whether this was some sort of insinuation on the president's part.
Including Senator thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way, and so no.
You know, our minds have been in the gutter for about, I don't know, a year and a half. There's been a lot of kind of what you never would talk about, impolite conversation in the political sphere. Is she right, Tal? Has he said this about male candidates too?
Look, the White House sent a list of examples that they say show similar language, and certainly he's referenced begging for political donations before, but that parenthetical that's raising so many eyebrows really did stand out among the others. And look, President Trump, and before he was president, just Donald Trump, is a master at making an insinuation that leaves him off the hook if he wants to be. You know, he did this a number of times against President Barack Obama. He's a master of phrases like, there's something there, you know what's going on there. I mean, he's really good at sort of winking at people and saying, you know what I'm saying, without being able to be pinned down explicitly using language that makes those statements. So, you know, the White House can brush this off all they want, and certainly every tweet is open to interpretation, but to say that element isn't there really seems to beg the question when, in the context of this national conversation, it certainly could have been read that way.
It frames Kirsten Gillibrand in a new light, though, too. It gives her kind of a new platform, don't you think, as we're talking about a field for Democratic leadership going
you could argue he did her a significant favor as she readies a potential presidential run in 2020. Ladies, thanks for coming back. We really appreciate the insight on all of this morning. Sarah Westwood, Tal Copen.
Nice to see you guys. All right, 49 minutes past the hour. Bitcoin just hit another record high. This made-up internet money. The chief U.S. financial regulator has a message for investors, though. Buyer beware. All these Bitcoin owners hate it when I say that. Details on CNN Money Stream next.
They're rich, though.
Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Not again. The power is out, and if it doesn't come on soon, you're stuck holding that flashlight all night. Hi, I'm Hunter Ellis, and this is the Atomic Beam Lantern, the new tough grade lantern that's stronger and brighter than other lights. And now the technology used by U.S. Special Forces is available at home. Just pull it open to turn it on. You'll get 360 degrees of super bright light. Close it to turn it off, and it retracts into its combat-ready case. It's super light and packs up tight. Look, flashlights shine a beam in one direction. Other lanterns use standard LEDs that look white but are not bright. But we use the brand new Atomic Beam LED flat panels that are blazing bright. They throw a massive amount of light in every direction. Look at the difference. It's so tough, it can survive this blast. So bright, it can be seen for miles. So strong, it can survive a 50-foot fall. The ultimate light for camping and hiking. Perfect in the truck or on the boat. And these new Atomic Beam LED panels can last a lifetime without burning out. We'll even upgrade you to a magnetic base, free. Stick it upside down. It holds on tight and still shines bright.
Look, this tactical lantern costs $300, but you can get the Atomic Beam Lantern for just $19.99 through this TV offer. Call right now and you can get a second Atomic Lantern and Atomic Beam USA, the best-selling tactical flashlight. It's ultra bright and withstands the toughest punishment. Just pay a separate fee. It gets better. All of today's orders get shipped to you for free and come with our extended lifetime guarantee. The Atomic Beam Lantern, second Atomic Lantern, and Atomic Beam USA.
Call now.
Call 1-800-301-8098 to get your Atomic Beam Lantern. Call now or go to atomiclantern.com. So call 1-800-301-8098. That's 1-800-301-8098. Rush delivery and deluxe version available. Call now.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I've been single for a long time because I'm always traveling.
Looking for a real relationship?
I love meeting new people, diving into different cultures. I'm not a game player. I like nice guys. So if you're out there, come find me.
Check out Match right now for free.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters. Ship packages. All the services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/TV and never go to the post office again.
I cry every year during CNN Heroes, so this year I'm not going to be an ugly crier. I'm going to be a beautiful crier, so I've been working on it a lot.
CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute, live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
My business relies on brain power, caffeine, and bandwidth. Lots of it. We're always online. It's how we work. My old provider was slowing us down. But switching? Who can afford the downtime? Then I heard Spectrum Business makes it easy. Got faster internet and lowered my bill. No waiting around, no disruptions. Our office never skipped a beat. And Spectrum Business even bought out our contract. Now we've got the best.
Reliable internet and voice for less. Switching is easy with Spectrum Business.
Long after the media and first responders are gone, Rebuilding Together works with those affected by disaster to rebuild lives, homes, and communities. As the nation's leading home rehabilitation organization, we invest in the long-term recovery of communities affected by natural disasters. Donate today to help us bring everyone back home.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announcing the U.S. is ready for talks with North Korea without preconditions. Not exactly in line with the president's position. Rex made the remarks Tuesday at the Atlantic Council in Washington. Tillerson making it clear if North Korea makes bad choices, the U.S. is prepared to act.
We're ready to talk anytime they'd like to talk. But they have to come to the table, and they have to come to the table with a view that they do want to make a different choice. In the meantime, our military preparedness is strong. I will continue our diplomatic efforts until the first bomb drops.
Pyongyang has dramatically ramped up the pace of its military program in 2017. Since February, the regime has fired off 23 missiles.
This morning, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton is expected to name a replacement for Senator Al Franken. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting he will choose his lieutenant governor, Tina Smith, as Minnesota's next U.S. Senator. Sources say she plans to run for the seat in a special election next year. Franken announced last week his intention to resign after he was accused of improper conduct toward more than half a dozen women. With the selection of Tina Smith, Minnesota will have 2 female senators for the first time in history.
That's right, Amy Klobuchar the other. New York City bombing suspect Akayed Ullah now facing terrorism charges after police say he detonated a homemade pipe bomb in a subway tunnel during the morning rush hour on Monday. And according to the criminal complaint, shortly before the attack, Ullah posted a statement on Facebook saying, quote, "Trump, you failed to protect your nation." The suspect was the only one seriously injured in the bombing. He faces life in prison, but not the death penalty since no one died in the attack.
All right, thousands of firefighters finally making some headway against that huge Thomas fire in Southern California. Officials say the blaze is now 25% contained. Winds have decreased to 15 to 25 miles an hour. It's those winds that have been a real problem here for a week. The Thomas fire has burned some 236,000 acres. Red flag warnings are now confined to the mountains of Los Angeles and Ventura counties, covering just over 1 million residents. At the peak last week, nearly 20 million people were affected. It's been over 250 days without any rain in the part of Ventura County where the Thomas fire started.
Just awful. San Francisco's Board of Supervisors setting a June 5th date for a special election to replace Mayor Ed Lee, who died on Tuesday. Lee's sudden death coming just hours after he appeared in an event at a city hospital. According to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader, the 65-year-old Lee suffered a heart attack while he was grocery shopping. Board of Supervisors President London Breed has been named acting mayor.
All right, it is that time of the hour, just about the top of the hour. Let's get a check on CNN Money Stream. Global stock markets mostly lower, but it was another record day on Wall Street. Bank stocks pushed the Dow and the S&P 500 to all-time highs. The Nasdaq closed lower on a dip in tech stocks. The two-day meeting of the Federal Reserve concludes today. The central bank expected to raise interest rates, the third hike this year. It also marks the last meeting for this woman, the current Fed chief, Janet Yellen. She's had a pretty great ride. Her term ends in February. All right, Bitcoin, that made-up internet money, it just hit another record high, closing in on $20,000. This has been unbelievable. The chief U.S. financial regulator, though, has a message for investors. Buyer beware. SEC Chairman Jay Clayton is urging extreme caution with virtual currencies, warning investors to be wary if an opportunity sounds too good to be true, or if you are pressured to act quickly. Clayton added that Bitcoin is not registered with the SEC. Unlike traditional currencies, the virtual coins aren't tied to a central bank. They're mined by a computer algorithm and stored somewhere on the internet.
I don't get it.
Ticket sales are strong with The Last Jedi. Star Wars The Last Jedi doesn't come out until tomorrow. Wait, tomorrow or Friday? Friday. But it's already become the top advanced ticket seller of the year. That's according to Fandango. The Last Jedi toppled another Disney production, Beauty and the Beast, for the top spot. It's on track for an opening weekend of $200 million, a huge number. It may not beat the previous Star Wars film. The Force Awakens had the biggest box office opening in history. And New York Post, at least, gives it 4 Star Wars, calls it a tour de
Star Wars.
4 Star Wars.
I get it. Yeah, Amy Fisher, it's interesting to see her in those
Yeah,
clips. 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. You going Friday?
Not Friday, but I'll go soon.
Yeah.
Yes, we're kind of like
we're
kind of crazy fans in my family. My little boys love it.
I hope you're dressing up.
Oh, maybe. I'll bring my lightsaber.
Early Start continues right now with what the takeaway is from an earthquake politically in Alabama.
I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
A seismic shift in the U.S. Senate. Doug Jones is the first Democrat to win in Alabama in a quarter century. The vote already leading to calls for a shakeup inside the White House. Early Start's coverage from Alabama and Washington starts right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Early Start, this morning after an election edition. I'm Christine Romans.
I'm Dave Briggs. Look at the headlines. Look at the cover.
Oof.
In 2 papers, exactly the same thought. Alabama was a political earthquake last night. Today is Wednesday, December 13th. It's 5 a.m. in the east. It is 4 a.m. in the center of the political universe, which is Alabama. That's where Democrat Doug Jones turned deep red, Alabama blue, capping off a long-shot campaign with a stunning win over Republican Roy Moore in last night's high-stakes Senate race. Jones taking 49.9% of the vote, 1.5 points ahead of Moore, who could not overcome sexual misconduct allegations and a very controversial past.
Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past, and unfortunately we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road. As Dr. King liked to quote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice."
Roy Moore quoted scripture as he talked to his supporters, refusing to concede, telling them it's not over and it's going to take some time. His campaign insisting a recount is possible, depending on the write-in and military ballots. Alabama's state Republican Party, though, says it is over. And Alabama's Secretary of State says it is highly unlikely the outcome will change. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with CNN's Kaylee Hartung. Kaylee, how did this election swing to Doug Jones?
Well, Christine, you don't need to look much farther than the past week of Doug Jones' campaigning schedule to understand what made this stunning upset possible. Think about it. In the past week, he had Barack Obama record a robocall for him. He brought down former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, and in the final hours, NBA great and native Alabamian Charles Barkley even got involved. He knew he couldn't do this without the help of African Americans, and he got near unanimous support from them. More support than Barack Obama himself got in this state in the 2008 or 2012 presidential elections. Our exit polls show 30% of the electorate was made up by African American voters. And the other part of this, too, you've got to mention women. Okay, you could call it the mom effect. In the state of Alabama, mothers of children under the age of 18, they Republicans who stayed home, the Republicans who weren't comfortable voting for Roy Moore, but weren't comfortable voting for a Democrat, that ability for them to stay home really contributed to this as well. And Roy Moore, meanwhile, he fell short with his continued denials and deflections of the allegations against him. It wasn't enough to activate his powerful Christian and conservative base that he thought he had.
All right, Kaylee Hartung for us in Montgomery. Nice to see you this morning. Busy morning for everyone with all this analysis. Thank you.
It is indeed. President Trump was all in on Roy Moore, and when it was clear the Republican seat was lost, his reaction was stunningly tame by Trump's standards. The president tweeting, "Congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends."
But a White House source tells CNN the result is devastating for the president, describing it as an earthquake. The finger pointing already underway with calls for the president to replace his political director, Bill Stepien.
All right, let's go live to Washington, bring in CNN politics reporter Tal Koppen, Sarah Westwood, White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Ron Brownstein, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor of The Atlantic. It is good to see you all. Ron,
good morning.
We'll deal you in first, as you are the latest to join us. The president won this state by 28 points 1 year ago. What is your single biggest takeaway from what happened last night in Alabama?
That we are seeing a very clear and consistent pattern of resistance and opposition to the president emerging across the electoral map in 2017. I mean, Roy Moore was obviously, to state the obvious, a uniquely flawed and vulnerable candidate. But what ought to worry Republicans was how much similarity there was between the coalition that elected Doug Jones and what we saw in Virginia and New Jersey and what we've seen in polls about President Obama. I mean, there were three big ingredients to this win for Doug Jones. One, as you've noted, enormous African-American turnout and margin, 96%. African-Americans, a higher share of the vote than in 2012, the presidential year with Barack Obama on the ballot. That does not happen in midterm elections. It reflects kind of the energy in that community. Second, a big showing for Democrats among young people. Doug Jones wins 60% of everybody under 45 in Alabama after the Democrats had won 70% of millennials in both New Jersey and Virginia. And then third, a solid movement toward the Democrat among those college-educated white voters. It's true that Doug Jones only won 40% of them, but that's double what Obama won in 2012. So you've seen the same relative movement that you saw in New Jersey and Virginia. And then there was a little more erosion than we saw in those earlier races among what has been the Trump coalition, where Roy Moore wins 4/5 of evangelicals, but that was down from 2012, the last exit polls. He wins 3/4 of blue-collar whites. That's down slightly. The reality is we are seeing a consistent showing of this coalition of minority voters, young voters, college-educated whites, all of which are telling us in polls they are deeply unhappy with President Trump's performance and kind of demeanor as president, showing up and voting Democratic. I mean, it's the striking thing about it is it's exactly what you would expect from the approval rating polls of President Trump. And for that reason, I think it is loud footfalls for Republicans in 2018, particularly in those swing white-collar suburban districts.
Sarah, let's talk about some of the Republican reaction. Even before this, we heard from the senior senator from the state, Richard Shelby, who said that he was not voting for the Republican candidate in his own state. That really sends a message about what the Republican establishment thinks about this unique, very unique race. This morning we hear from John Kasich. Thankfully, today enough Republicans chose country over party. Tomorrow we must redouble our efforts to support candidates worthy of the office they seek. Jeff Flake says this: decency wins. 2 short words that look at how many times that has been retweeted. I mean, a lot of people liking and retweeting that. Sarah Westwood, the reaction now from the Republican Party going forward, and what happens, do you think, inside the White House?
Well, certainly the White House is going to be worried about how this reflects on its credibility and its clout heading into 2018. The implications for the party, like Rod mentioned, are not good. But on the other hand, I think a lot of Republicans in Congress are secretly or openly, as you just proved, breathing a sigh of relief that they don't have to deal with a Roy Moore being in the Senate for years to come. Republicans would constantly be asked to react to the latest Roy Moore controversy. It seems like every time he opened his mouth, he said something appalling that Republicans would have been forced to grapple with. And so with him gone, that's one less vote in the Senate for the president's agenda, but it certainly doesn't have to force them to confront the controversy over whether they were going to seat him, whether they're going to put him on committees. How do you co-sponsor legislation with someone who's been accused of preying on children? So certainly that is one dilemma Republicans have gratefully avoided.
Yeah, and in terms of numbers, could put the Senate in play as we move forward, with Arizona and Nevada particularly vulnerable given the situation right now. But Tal, this was a uniquely, historically bad candidate for the Republican Party. Can Democrats overread the results?
Sure. You know, it's always hard to draw generalizations from one election. You know, as Ron was describing, this was really a perfect storm for Doug Jones. Everything that needed to happen happened. But at the same time, this is ruby red Alabama, and we're still seeing this result. It's very close, but we're still seeing this result. And we've seen a lot of special elections where Democrats have come quite close, but ultimately fell short. We've seen the governor's races. So, you know, even if they overread the election results, I think Democrats are really going to be buoyed by this win. They're going to now look at the map as more in play. You know, this was also a turnout victory, which is very important for Democrats, especially as they embarrassingly lost some states in the presidential election that have traditionally gone blue. So that is a lesson they can take away from this. And look, you mentioned Nevada and Arizona. Those are vulnerable seats for Democrats, but we cannot lose sight in 2018 of how many vulnerable Democrats are up for re-election in really red states. And so those Democrats are now going to look at this victory and think, if Doug Jones can win in ruby red Alabama, if I can tailor my message to my state, if I can turn out the voting subgroups that I need to turn out, maybe I can win this thing after all. And so really there are lessons here that can be taken from the map that are going to carry through the 2018 election and give Democrats a little bit of confidence that they may feel like they need right now.
Yeah, still 10 Senate Democrats up for re-election in Trump states.
Let's talk, Ron, a little bit about the legislative agenda, the impact on the legislative agenda, because, you know, the president's going to talk today about tax reform. It's moving very quickly. They want a bill on his desk next week. They want this done as a Christmas present. Just a few days ago, I was hearing Republicans very euphoric about the prospect of getting tax reform done and moving on to entitlements at the beginning of the year, maybe infrastructure too. What happens now?
It's going to be a bit of a crapshoot for Republicans now. I mean, the margin is so razor thin in the Senate. And keep in mind, you know, a lot of the bills they've been focusing on this year, their effort to repeal Obamacare, which ultimately fell short because they lost 3 Republicans. Now they can't even, you know, there's one less to give, and tax reform that they're working on. Those are the types of bills they can pass with 50 vote, you know, with the vice presidential tiebreaker.
Sure.
There are a lot of bills that they want to get to that they can't use that tricky reconciliation rule, and they're going to need 60. And now Democrats are going to be empowered, and moderate Republicans are going to feel like they are vindicated in running against Trump. I mean, it's going to be a very difficult, to say the least, situation for Republican leadership going on.
Ron, you weigh in on that.
I would say, you know, specifically out of Alabama, we saw the same thing to a lesser degree, but in relative movement, also very powerful, that we saw in Virginia, which is white-collar suburbs moving sharply away from Republicans in the Trump era. Madison County in Alabama, 20 points better for Jones than for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Shelby County, 20 points better than in 2016, both the places where 40% of the adult population has a college degree. Why does that matter? Because there are so many Republicans in the House in white-collar suburban districts, particularly along the coast, in Northern Virginia, in the suburbs of Philadelphia, in Orange County, in New Jersey and New York, who voted for a tax bill that ultimately raises taxes on many of the same voters who are pulling away from the party already on cultural grounds and a kind of a personal distaste for President Trump. And those are the House members who are right on the front line of this vote. I mean, you have, 24 House Republicans, 23 to be precise, in districts that Hillary Clinton carried. Many of them are white-collar districts. Many of those districts ultimately lose out in the tax bill. They are being asked to vote for it at a time when they are getting more and more evidence that those voters are already up in arms against many aspects of the Trump administration. And I think that's going to be fascinating to watch. It does seem that they're committed to do it, but they are really rolling the dice given the consistent results we have seen now out of New Jersey, Virginia, and Alabama.
Not gone out and had an angry reaction just yet, but he is a brander above all else, always has been, always will be. What is the Trump brand today, and how do you expect him to react to this throughout the next couple of days?
Well, certainly President Trump is going to have more to say about this race in the coming days. I think that you might see him try to cast blame on someone else for the loss. You know, he was obviously angry when he felt like he received bad advice that led him to back Senator Luther Strange in the Republican primary, and he finally fell in line with his former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon to support Roy Moore in the general election. Both times, obviously, the candidate that he backed was a loser. So the White House will be asking itself a lot of questions about what led them to support Roy Moore, what polling they looked at to decide that it was a good idea to expose the president to this kind of criticism by scheduling a rally down in Alabama's backyard in Pensacola by recording a robocall. Those are the kinds of decisions that a White House with maybe a more experienced, a sharper political operation would not have made, and so I think they will be rethinking the methods that they use to arrive at those conclusions.
And maybe rethinking the role of Steve Bannon. Here's what the Senate Leadership Fund says. This is a brutal reminder that candidate quality matters, regardless of where you're running. Not only did Steve Bannon cost us a critical Senate seat in one of the most Republican states in the country, but he also dragged the President of the United States into his fiasco. That from Stephen Law from the Senate Leadership.
The president dragged himself into this fight. No one dragged him into it. He picked this fight. He wanted in on this. We'll bring you back in about 20 minutes. Thank you, all three of you. More ahead. But was the president making a sexual insinuation when he said a New York senator would do anything for campaign contributions? This morning, one scathing editorial from a national newspaper says the president is not even fit to clean toilets. More next.
Early Start, brought to you by T. Rowe Price, helping you stay confident in today's uncertain markets. Invest with confidence.
No matter how the markets change, at T. Rowe Price, our disciplined approach remains. Global markets may be uncertain, but you can feel confident in our investment experience around the world. Call us or your advisor. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. But after an electrical fire from faulty wiring, Mary's vintage clothing and designer shoe collection were ruined. Luckily, the Geico Insurance Agency had recently helped Mary with renter's insurance, and she got a totally fab replacement wardrobe at Bloomingdale's. Mary was inspired to start her own fashion line, exclusively for little lambs. Visit geico.com and see how affordable renter's insurance can be.
Here's the story of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters Sumatra Reserve. Let's go to Sumatra. The coffee here is amazing because the volcanic soil is amazing. So we give farmers like Vin more plants to grow more delicious coffee, which helps provide for Vin's family. All for a smoother tasting cup of coffee. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters.
Mark Nason Los Angeles introduces the Dress Knit Footwear Collection. Seamless knit construction for a custom fit and air-cooled memory foam luxe footbeds for unmatched comfort. The Dress Knit Collection by Mark Nason.
When you have a really traumatic injury, we have a short amount of time to get our patient to the hospital with good results. We call that the golden hour.
Evaluating patients remotely is where I think we have the potential to make a difference.
We would save a lot of lives if we could bring the doctor to the patient.
Verizon is racing to build the first and most powerful 5G network with ultra-low latency that will enable things like precision robotic surgery from thousands of miles away.
As we get faster wireless,
no delay.
A scalpel could work thousands of miles away.
Get our boys up, Dunkirk.
It's suicide. One man's daring plan was the world's only hope.
Initiate.
We shall never surrender!
Darkest Hour, rated PG-13.
Seen it, done it, been there, drove that. SUV, as you please, all the same, also lame. Oh man, so glam, yes ma'am, straight fam, an SUV from Italy. OMG, want one of these, it's got size, see how it handles, look at those moves, can't hold a candle. Heritage, history, racing, and victory. This Italian family tree now has an SUV. Stelvio, Alfa Romeo. There's no one I'd rather hit the road with.
No one I'd rather have dinner and a movie with.
No one I'd rather lean on. Being in love is an amazing thing. Being in love with your best friend is everything. Ever Us. One diamond for your best friend, one for your true love. For the one woman in your life who's both. Ever Us. Available at Kay, Jared, and Zales.
All right, a tweet from the president creating even more controversy. This time he is attacking New York's Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She is calling for the president's resignation, citing the many sexual misconduct allegations against him. And now Mr. Trump is attacking her. This is what he says, tweeting, Gillibrand would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them. He put that in parentheses, and would do anything for them.
The president's critics claim he was insinuating the senator might accept sexual favors for financial support. This scathing indictment of Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board, quote, a president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. This isn't about the policy differences we have with all presidents or our disappointment in some of their decisions. Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful. More now from CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Good morning, Christina Dave. President Trump has injected himself squarely in the middle of the sexual harassment debate once again, going after, in a personal way, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, calling her a lightweight who would, quote, do anything for political contributions. This prompted this uproar over what the president meant by do anything for contributions. At the White House briefing on Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said this.
Many, including the senator, thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way.
Not only to the president, she was on Capitol Hill, joined by other Democrats throughout the day, saying that President Trump simply cannot talk like this to Democratic senators or others.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice. And I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday, and neither will the millions of women who have been marching since the Women's March to stand up against policies they do not agree with.
So this back and forth puts President Trump again in the middle of this sexual harassment debate that's shaking the world of politics, media, and Hollywood. The president is saying he did not do what any of his accusers said. Now, many Democrats on Capitol Hill calling for his resignation or congressional investigation into any of that. As for the White House, Sarah Sanders said the president would not participate in any type of an investigation on Capitol Hill into any of these allegations of wrongdoing. David, Christine.
All right, Jeff Zenley, thanks. Just want to point out, it's not all the president's critics reacting that way. Rick Santorum, former senator and a staunch supporter of the president, said on CNN yesterday how he reacted. He said, quote, the same way as everyone else read it, unfortunately. So it's not just his critics who took offense to the tone of that tweet. Meanwhile, firefighters finally making headway against the massive Thomas Fire in Southern California. Details next.
Good questions lead to good answers. Our advisors can help you find both. Talk to one today and see why we're bullish on the future. Yours.
The perfect gift sale at Joseph A. Bank. All executive suits $199. All dress shirts 2 for $89. Plus, buy one get one free on almost everything in store. The perfect gift sale, only at Joseph A. Bank.
Introducing
The never-before-seen
Next level of innovation.
Redesigned,
reimagined,
Reborn.
new,
used, certified pre-owned.
Ford, Toyota,
Subaru,
Volkswagen,
Honda, GMC, featuring
backup camera,
EcoBoost,
all-wheel drive,
low miles,
Park Assist, Sport Mode,
for wherever you
dream of going.
For drivers everywhere.
for the ride of your life, for the driven.
Shop all the cars all in one place. Auto Trader. If you can't find your next car here, you won't find it anywhere.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even a swing set standoff. And we covered it. July 1st, 2015. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
When I grow up, I want to plant a garden for the whole world. There will be flowers, vegetables, fruit, and even lima beans.
We all grow up, but I didn't give up on dreaming big. Here at Coke, my team and I push each other to find new natural ways to feed a growing world. You know, it's a serious challenge, but I've been preparing my whole life.
In order to have a healthy mindset, we need young people to be educated on the value of physical fitness. It's really important for all of us as women to create the opportunity to participate in sports. It's the fact that there are many women that makes this journey so inspiring. Determination, passion, and purpose. That's the spirit of a true athlete. That's the kind of role model I want for our young girls. Today in Saudi, not just in sports, in every field, something wonderful is happening.
Chinette Comfort Cup. Ready, sip, go.
10 everyday heroes, one amazing night. Join us for CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute, hosted by Anderson Cooper and Kelly Ripa, live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
It's Bo Townsend Nissan's Master the Drive sales event. Just sign and drive with no money down for a new 2017 Sentra SV for $177 per month, or a new 2017 Rogue S all-wheel drive for just $247 a month. Sign and drive, no money down. Bo Townsend Nissan on National Road in Vandalia. And remember, at Bo Townsend Nissan, it's all about you.
Happy Honda Days are here, and we've built the best gift right here in Ohio. The brand new, totally redesigned 2018 Honda Accord. The most impressive Honda ever. The next generation Accord boasts a powerful turbocharged engine, a restyled interior, and is loaded with multi-angle rear-view camera, Honda sensing, adaptive cruise control, lane assist, and more. Come test drive the new 2018 Accord during Happy Honda Days. Going on now at your Miami Valley Honda dealers.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
5:26 Eastern Time, thousands of firefighters finally making some progress against the Thomas Fire in Southern California. Officials say the blaze is now 25% contained thanks to winds that have decreased to 15 to 25 miles an hour. The Thomas Fire has burned some 236,000 acres. Red flag warnings are now confined to the mountains of the Los Angeles and Ventura counties, covering just over 1 million residents. At the peak last week, nearly 20 million people were affected.
All right, San Francisco's Board of Supervisors setting a June 5th date for a special election to replace Mayor Ed Lee, who died Tuesday. Lee's sudden death coming just hours after he appeared at an event at a city hospital. According to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, the 65-year-old Lee suffered a heart attack the night before while he was grocery shopping. Board of Supervisors President London Breed has been named acting mayor.
All right, one of the most reliably Republican states in the nation is blue this morning. Doug Jones defeats Roy Moore in a highly contested Alabama Senate race. The fallout for the president and what's in store for the midterms next.
Chinette Comfort Cup. Ready, sip, go.
Art to me is anything can provoke an emotion. It's creating things that I find beautiful. I love expressing myself through my clothing. Our clothes have elements that show that it's a very rich history, a very rich culture. I hope that we change people's minds about what it is to be Saudi. Vision 2030 is helping that. It gives us such pride to have a Made in Saudi Arabia label on our clothes.
Beyond is a natural pet food that goes beyond assuming ingredients are safe to knowing they are. Going beyond expectations because our pets deserve it. Beyond, natural pet food.
It's our first anniversary hosting CNN Heroes together. Paper is the anniversary gift, so this is a Paper Heroes Award with tissues built in case you cry during the show.
I will cry.
CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute, live on CNN.
It's Bo Townsend Nissan's Master the Drive sales event. Sign and drive, no money down on a 2017 Rogue Sport or Rogue S for just $247 a month. And remember, at Bo Townsend Nissan, it's all about you.
You'll notice something about us. Even though we've built a best-in-class network, connecting hundreds of millions of devices nationwide, putting TV on more platforms than ever before, and delivering enough bandwidth to power whatever comes next, we're still not satisfied. We remain 100% committed to improving every single day. Spectrum, redefining what a cable company can be.
It's Bo Townsend Nissan's Master the Drive sales event. Save up to 25% off MSRP on select models and have no payments till spring of 2018. At Bo Townsend Nissan, it's all about you.
New day, the most news in the morning, up next on CNN.
I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
Well, you could say for the first time in 25 years, a Democrat wins a Senate seat in deep red Alabama. Doug Jones with the major upset over Roy Moore. So how's the president handling the defeat, and can Democrats carry momentum into 2018? More of Early Start's coverage from Alabama and Washington right now. Welcome back to Early Start. I'm Dave Briggs.
And I'm Christine Romans. It is 31 minutes past the hour. And Democrat Doug Jones turning deep red Alabama blue, capping off a long shot campaign with a stunning win over Republican Roy Moore in last night's Senate race. Jones taking 49.9% of the vote, 1.5 points ahead of Moore, who could not overcome sexual misconduct allegations and his own checkered past.
Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past, and unfortunately we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road. As Dr. King liked to quote, The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Moore refusing to concede, though, his campaign, insisting a recount is possible depending on write-in and military ballots. But Alabama's state Republican Party says it's over, and Alabama's Secretary of State says it's highly unlikely the outcome will change. That Secretary of State will be on New Day shortly. Our coverage of this historic election begins in Montgomery with CNN's Kaylee Hartung. Kaylee, good morning to you. How did Doug Jones get it done?
And good morning, Dave. You don't have to look much past this past week of Doug Jones' campaign schedule to understand how he pulled this off. Over the course of the past week, he had Barack Obama make a robocall for him. He held events with former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, even got the NBA legend and native Alabamian Charles Barkley involved in the final hours. But he knew he couldn't do this without the help of African Americans, and they turned out for him in droves. 30% of the electorate, African Americans. That turnout greater than what Barack Obama got here in 2008 or in 2012. Now, the other important demographic here for Jones, women, specifically white, well-educated women in this state. And you could call it the mom effect here. Women with children under the age of 18 turned out for Doug Jones, voted for him by a broad 35 percentage points. Doug Jones putting together a unique coalition to pull off this stunning upset, and you can't discount the fact that there were Republicans here who voted for a Democrat for the first time in their adult lives because they couldn't stomach a vote for Roy Moore following the allegations against him or some of his inflammatory comments from the past. And there were also the Republicans who chose to sit this one out, another important number there. Roy Moore, in the end, could not activate the conservative and Christian base that he thought he could. Dave, Christine.
Kaylee, a former sportscaster like myself, many of our colleagues saying this is Charles Barkley's biggest win of his career. Thanks for being up early for us. We appreciate it.
All right, President Trump was all in on Moore. When it was clear the Republican seat was lost, his reaction was tame by Trump tweeting standards. The president tweeting this: congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends.
But one White House source tells CNN the result is, quote, devastating for the president, describing it as an earthquake. Finger-pointing already underway with calls for the president to replace his political director, Bill Stepien.
All right, let's go live to Washington, bring in CNN politics reporter Tal Kopin, Sarah Westwood, the White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Ron Brownstein, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor of The Atlantic. Ron, the number cruncher that you are,
Yeah.
Ron Brownstein.
Yes.
Tell me, what did you see in that race last night?
Well, look, what I mostly saw was a confirmation of the trends that have already been developing in 2017, where the groups that have been the most disaffected, disenchanted, if not disgusted by President Trump in polling have turned out for Democrats. What we saw in Alabama largely confirmed what we saw in Virginia and New Jersey governor's races in November, where the Democrat was buoyed by three big movements. One, you had an enormous turnout among African Americans and a big margin at 96%. Second, you had the Republicans really struggling with younger voters, and the Democrats won not only 60% of everybody under 30, but 60% of everybody under 45 in Alabama, and that was after winning 70% of millennials in New Jersey and Virginia. Worth noting here, millennials will surpass the baby boom in 2018 for the first time ever as the largest generation of eligible voters. And then the third big piece were the suburban white voters that polling has shown President Trump significantly underperforming with. Doug Jones won 40% of them. That doesn't sound like a really big number, but it's double what President Obama did in 2012, the last time we had a good exit poll. And among those college white women, as you were discussing, it was up to about 45%. That was enough to overcome what we could call the Trump coalition of older, rural, blue-collar, and evangelical whites. And there was even a little erosion there. Finally, the Trump factor. Over the last 20 years, the votes in congressional elections have increasingly tracked the way people feel about the incumbent president. 93% of the people who disapproved of President Trump voted for Doug Jones. 87% of the people who disapproved of Trump voted Democratic in Virginia, 82% in New Jersey. That's what we have been seeing over the last 20 years. The relationship is holding under President Trump, and that's bad news for Republicans who will be running in places in 2018, particularly in the House, where he's less popular considerably than he was in Alabama.
Ron has the numbers to show what happened last night. The New York papers, they just have one horse to sum up what happened in Alabama. Two papers, one horse named Sassy. But this isn't just front page news here in New York or in Alabama, Sarah. It's around the world. France, Germany, Spain, the UK, around the world. And that's in particular because of the message this sends to the president, the blow it is, you see there in your lower left, to the president of the United States. What does it mean for his influence as we move forward?
Well, the blow to President Trump is largely self-inflicted. Trump had a clean opportunity to break with Roy Moore when the rest of his party was doing it in October, when these allegations of sexual misconduct first emerged. The RNC pulled back. Senator Mitch McConnell came out and said that Roy Moore should drop out of the race. That was President Trump's opportunity to wash his hands of this defeat, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now about the message that Roy Moore's loss sent to President Trump. But because Trump decided to not just endorse Roy Moore, but go down to Pensacola, Alabama's backyard, and campaign on behalf of him, to record a robocall, to go on the attack against Doug Jones, calling him a Pelosi, Schumer, liberal Democrat. These are the kinds of things that exposed President Trump to criticism, and it will really reflect poorly on the White House's political operation as it moves into its most critical test when 2018 starts.
Tal, I wonder what's going on inside the White House as they try to move forward here and figure out who has the president's ear. Listen to what the Senate Leadership Fund said about Steve Bannon, that Bannon is to blame for this. This is a brutal reminder that candidate quality matters, regardless of where you are running. Not only did Steve Bannon cost us a critical Senate seat in one of the most Republican states in the country, but he also dragged the President of the United States into his fiasco. Do you think there'll be a shakeup?
You know, there very well may be. I was sort of musing aloud on Twitter. I feel like Mitch McConnell this morning must be like those theater masks, like happy and sad at the same time, because, you know, there's a bit of glee for the establishment Republicans that Steve Bannon suffered a loss here and really embarrassed the Republican Party. And certainly, even though Mitch McConnell has to be sick to his stomach to lose a ruby red Republican seat in the Senate, there is an element of a victory for those Republicans who have wanted to see the party move away from the influence of Steve Bannon and perhaps think that Trump's base isn't quite as dominant as it seemed in the presidential election. And so there's a swirl of things here, and Ron brings up an excellent point about House moderates who are running in districts. They're already a little bit squeamish about some of the things the Republican Party has been pushing. This type of wave could really wipe them out. And so across the board, the White House political operation in terms of the 2018 midterms, but also legislatively and how Congress is able to move forward, you know, the president's hand is weakened there. So when you talk about a shockwave, I mean, the implications of this really reverberate throughout Washington now going forward.
Ron, Lindsey Graham said had Roy Moore won, he would have been the gift that keeps on giving to Democratic politics. Jeff Flake tweeted decency wins. Cory Gardner of Colorado said the NRSC will never support Roy Moore. Is there any hint of relief, do you think, inside the Senate as far as the Republican Party goes?
Well, it was kind of a lose-lose, Dave, right? I mean, obviously it's tremendously painful to lose the vote. A symbol the Democrats, as long as he was a uniquely vulnerable candidate with unique liabilities. But as I said, what is striking about this is not what is unique to Alabama, but what is common to what we are seeing in 2017. And if you are in particular one of those House Republicans, because I think this is where this really kind of hits home, in a suburban district, and you are looking at places like Madison County or Shelby County or the counties with the University of Alabama and Auburn, in all of them, Doug Jones ran 20 points better, or roughly 20 points better than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. And as I said, you doubled the share among college-educated whites. That is kind of an ominous footfall, especially given how resistant many of those voters are to this tax bill that Republicans are trying to kind of push through here in the final weeks of 2017.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because, Sarah, I wanted to ask you about the legislative agenda here. Now, when you look at the balance of power, there's one seat in the Senate for next year. Tax reform quickly has very high hopes next year. Some have been whispering about entitlement reform.
Bob Corker's already out on tax reform.
Yes, so what about the legislative agenda?
Well, certainly now Republicans see that the clock is ticking on tax reform. They have a self-imposed deadline of getting this done by the end of the year. It's something they've been talking about for months now. But now they have a procedural deadline because seated in January, that gives congressional leaders a lot less wiggle room as they move this bill through conference. Like you mentioned, they already lost Bob Corker when the Senate passed its version of tax reform. They don't know that they will have another defector once the final product comes out of conference. And given the ominous implications of this race for 2018, Republicans know that they need to have something to run on. You saw how many Republicans stayed home in Alabama because Republicans are than ever. They need to have at least one legislative accomplishment to tout out on the campaign trail next year. It just makes tax reform that much more important.
On the other hand, real quick, you are looking at a bill that has a 32% roughly approval rating, the lowest we've seen for a major policy. This tax bill is less popular than some tax increases that we've seen over the last 25 years. So it's not clear whether passing this is going to alleviate or compound the problems for Republicans, particularly in these white-collar suburban districts.
Well, that largely depends on economic growth. If what the Republicans think will happen does, then they're going to be just fine. Really increases the influence of people like Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, John McCain. The power they wield now is hard to understate. But, Tal, it's also hard to understate the potential historical consequences of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. When you consider that 2018 could flip Senate control, and when you consider that the special counsel, depending on what he finds on this Russia investigation, how significant is that selection?
From the Russia, he said a New York senator would
brand Tylenol.
DirecTV has been rated #1 in customer satisfaction over cable for 17 years running. But some people still like cable, just like some people like wet grocery bags, getting a bad haircut, overcrowded trains, turnstiles that don't turn, and spilling coffee on themselves. But for everyone else, there's DirecTV. For #1 rated customer satisfaction over cable, switch to DirecTV and for a limited time get a $100 reward card. Call 1-800-DIRECTV.
Can you fly? Can you fly through time? Can you fly through space? Can you fly higher than me? Can you fly forever? Inspiration gives wings to the mind. Fly with your mind.
There's no one I'd rather hit the road with.
No one I'd rather have dinner and a movie with.
No one I'd rather lean on.
Being in love is everything. Ever Us. One diamond for your best friend, one for your true love. For the one woman in your life who's both. Ever Us. Available at Kay, Jared, and Zales.
Here's the story of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters Sumatra Reserve. Let's go to Sumatra. The coffee here is amazing because the volcanic soil is amazing. So we give farmers like Vin more plants to grow more delicious coffee, which helps provide for Vin's family. All for a smoother tasting cup of coffee. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters.
You can't predict the market, but through good times and bad, at T. Rowe Price, we've helped our investors stay confident for over 75 years. Call us or your advisor. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Good evening, I'm Andy Cohen. We have...
What are you doing?
Co-anchoring the news.
You're actually my co-host, but just on New Year's Eve. Get out of my chair.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, only on CNN.
Are you not wearing pants?
The newly updated Spectrum TV app is available on more devices, so you can enjoy your TV in more ways than ever before. You can stream live TV in the living room, on demand in the dining room. Search for shows and...
When severe weather knocks you down, Shelter Insurance is there to help pick you up. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-900-0202.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now for free information.
President's tweets again leading to controversy. He's attacking New York's Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Gillibrand calling for the president's resignation, citing the many sexual misconduct allegations against him. Now, Mr. Trump being roundly criticized for tweeting Gillibrand, quote, would come to my office begging for campaign contributions not so long ago and would do anything for them.
The president's critics claim he was insinuating the senator would accept sexual favors for financial support. This scathing indictment of Mr. Trump from the typically restrained USA Today editorial board. Get this, a president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. This isn't about the policy differences we have with all presidents or our disappointment in some of their decisions. Donald Trump, the man, is uniquely awful. More now from CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Good morning, Christine and Dave. President Trump has injected himself squarely in the middle of the sexual harassment debate once again, going after in a personal way Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, calling her a lightweight who would, quote, do anything for political contributions. This prompted this uproar over what the president meant by do anything for contributions. At the White House briefing on Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said this.
Many, including the senator, thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way, and so no.
So Sanders pushing back on the fact that there was any sexual innuendo intended by the do anything remark. But as for Senator Gillibrand, she reacted strongly to the president. She was on Capitol Hill, joined by other Democrats throughout the day, saying that President Trump simply cannot talk like this to Democratic senators or others.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice. And I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday, and neither will the millions of women who have been marching since the Women's March to stand up against policies they do not agree with.
So this back and forth puts President Trump again in the middle of this sexual harassment debate that's shaking the world of politics, media, and Hollywood. The president is saying he did not do what any of his accusers said. Now, many Democrats on Capitol Hill calling for his resignation or congressional investigation into any of that. As for the White House, Sarah Sanders said the president would not participate in any type of an investigation on Capitol Hill into any of these allegations of wrongdoing. Dave and Christine.
Jeff Zeleny, thanks.
It wasn't just the president's critics that felt there was some innuendo in that tweet. Rick Santorum, longtime supporter of President Trump, said on CNN yesterday he took that tweet the same way as everyone else, unfortunately.
All right, 51 minutes past the hour, Bitcoin just hit another record high, but the chief U.S. financial regulator has a message for Bitcoin investors. Buyer beware. Details on CNN Money Stream next.
At T-Mobile, when you holiday together, great things come in twos, like T-Mobile and Netflix. Right now, when you get an unlimited family plan, Netflix is included.
Ho, ho, ho!
T-Mobile covers your Netflix subscription.
Best Christmas gift ever!
So you can binge watch all year long.
Now you're thinking Christmas.
And now, when you buy any of this season's hot new Samsung Galaxy phones, you get a second one free to gift. That's one Samsung for you and one to give. T-Mobile, holiday together.
Coney Island, 1950s.
I know where all the bodies are buried.
They're not going to come after you here, are they?
What is wrong with you? You want to kill somebody?
That's what you get when you marry a gangster.
Wonder Wheel, rated PG-13, everywhere Friday.
What is style all about? I don't know.
Maybe something about personality? Creating your own environment?
It's just a way of being. Just being you, actually.
Once you find your own way of living, I think style is automatic. Tissot, every time, Swissmatic.
A part of the Vision 2030, there is going to be a huge amount of renewable energy going to be installed within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have a lot to do, and we have dreams to do. We have to use the solar energy within our country. Things will change. I would love to be one of the leaders in the renewable energy, and hopefully I will be one day.
Us lives here,
where we can be surprised by others and ourselves. For a better us, donate to your local Y today.
Soft. Softer. And the world's softest ever. Introducing the world's softest pajamas from Pajamagram. What makes these pajamas the world's softest? The fleece lining is carefully brushed, which makes it both soft and warm, while the knit on the outside is silky smooth. She'll love the way the world's softest pajamas look and feel, and so will you. You can order these pajamas now in time for Christmas, and every package comes already wrapped, so you don't have to do another thing. And when she's happy, you're happy too. So go ahead and spoil her. Guys, give the gift that keeps on giving. Softness, comfort, and relaxation. Call or go online now at Pajamagram.com to order the world's softest pajamas today. Every order comes with free gift packaging and a personalized gift card. Delivery is guaranteed by Christmas. So order now at Pajamagram.com.
The in-laws have moved in with us.
And our adult children are here.
So we save by using Tide.
Which means we use less.
3 generations of clothes cleaned in 1 wash.
Those are Mom's.
Anybody see my pants?
Nothing cleans better.
Put those on, Dad.
It's gotta be Tide.
My experience with USAA has been excellent. They always refer to me as Master Sergeant. They really appreciate the military family, and it really shows.
We've got auto insurance, homeowners insurance.
I had an accident with a vehicle. I actually called USAA before we called the police. USAA was very hands-on, very quick, very prompt. I feel like we're being handled as people that actually have a genuine need. We're the Weber family, and we're USAA members for life.
USAA. Get your insurance quote today.
Everyone wants a healthy white smile, but the fact is, just brushing your teeth is not enough. Now there's a better solution. This is the revolutionary Waterpik Water Flosser. It removes up to 99.9% of plaque from treated areas and is up to 50% more effective than string flossing. Brushing, even with an electric toothbrush, only gets the surface. But the Waterpik Water Flosser cleans the areas brushing misses. To learn more, ask your dental professional about Waterpik.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says the U.S. is ready for talks with North Korea without preconditions. Not exactly in line with the president's position, says it has not changed. But Tillerson makes it clear if North Korea makes bad choices, the U.S. is prepared to act.
We're ready to talk anytime they'd like to talk. But they have to come to the table, and they have to come to the table with a view that they do want to make a different choice. In the meantime, our military preparedness is strong. I will continue our diplomatic efforts until the first bomb drops.
Pyongyang has dramatically ramped up the pace of its missile program in 2017, firing 23 missiles since February. Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton expected to name a replacement for Senator Al Franken today. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting he'll choose his Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith, and sources say Smith plans to run for the seat in a special election next year. Franken announced last week his intention to resign after he was accused of improper conduct toward more than six women.
All right, let's get a check on CNN Money Stream this morning. Global stocks mostly lower after another record high day on Wall Street, folks. Bank stocks pushed the Dow and the S&P 500 to all-time highs. The Nasdaq closed lower, though, on a dip in tech shares. The two-day meeting of the Federal Reserve concludes today. The central bank expected to raise interest rates, the third hike this year. This is the last meeting for Janet Yellen. Bitcoin just hit another record high, closing in on 20 grand. It was $800 at the beginning of the year, I think. But the chief U.S. financial regulator has a message for investors. Buyer beware. SEC Chairman Jay Clayton is urging extreme caution with virtual currencies, warning investors to be wary if an opportunity sounds too good to be true or if you are pressured to act quickly. Unlike traditional currencies, the virtual coins aren't tied to a central bank. They're mined by an algorithm in a computer. You can't hold them. You can't touch them. Kind of made up internet money. What could go wrong? Ticket sales are strong with The Last Jedi. Star Wars, The Last Jedi doesn't come out till Friday, but it has already become the top advanced ticket seller of the year. That's according to Fandango. The Last Jedi toppled another Disney production, Beauty and the Beast, for the top spot. It is on track for an opening weekend of $200 million. It may not be the previous Star Wars film. The Force Awakens had a very, don't do that because I don't like crowds, but I will see it. I will do it. I will see it. I mean, I think It's getting great reviews.
93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep. All right, so long. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christine Romans.
I'm Dave Briggs. New Day has you covered on all things Alabama related. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have come so far, and the people of Alabama have spoken.
The reckoning has continued. Any Republican should have...
Greater. And you see that come out in his words and his tweets.
This is New Day with Chris Cuomo and Allison Camerata.
Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. This is your New Day. It's Wednesday, December 13th, 6 o'clock here in New York. The Alabama special election was a huge shocker. Voters told Roy Moore and the horse he rode in on to take a hike. Democrat Doug Jones won. Moore is refusing to concede, but Jones is clearly the winner according to that state's Secretary of State. So Jones won, as was an apparent call to decency. President Trump posting a rare conciliatory tweet congratulating Doug Jones. Alabama voters have now rejected 2 consecutive candidates backed by President Trump. So the question becomes, was the president's naked play for a Senate seat over the growing accusations of sexual abuse and child molestation a mistake that will have legs?
The national implications of this race cannot be overstated. Republicans' narrow majority in the Senate is now down to 1 seat, which could snarl President Trump's legislative agenda. And this morning, Democrats say they feel more optimistic about trying to seize control of both chambers of Congress next year. So all of this, as the White House is defending the president's tweet from yesterday that attacked a Democratic senator, they say the reporters' minds are in the gutter for thinking that tweet was sexually demeaning. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is firing back at the president, vowing that she cannot be silenced. And there's a bruising new editorial that argues the president is not fit for office. So we have all of this covered for you. Let's begin with CNN's Kaylee Hartung. She is live in Montgomery, Alabama. What a night, Kaylee.
Yeah, good morning, Allison. We saw President Trump throw the full weight of his presidency behind the accused child molester Roy Moore in the final stretch of this campaign. But in the end, it wasn't enough. A stinging defeat for Trump, who broke with much of his party's leadership to back the controversial candidate.
I think that I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say.
Democrat Doug Jones becoming the first Democrat in decades to win a Senate seat in Alabama, stunning the country by defeating embattled Republican Roy Moore in the deep red state.
As Dr. King liked to quote, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
The Moore campaign refusing to concede.
When the vote is this close, that it's not over. What we've got to do is wait on God and let this process play out.
Doug Jones' campaign telling CNN Moore did not call Jones to congratulate him, but the Alabama Republican Party declaring the race over.
Do you expect anything other than Mr. Jones being the next senator from the state of Alabama?
No, I would find that highly unlikely.
A source close to the White House describing Moore's defeat as an earthquake, telling CNN that the results are devastating for President Trump, who gave Moore a full-throated endorsement in the final stretch of the campaign.
Get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
The president sending an uncharacteristically subdued tweet after the race was called, but before Moore refused to concede. Congratulating Jones on a hard-fought victory, saying the write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. A GOP official close to the White House tells CNN Moore's loss should be a wake-up call for Mr. Trump, who was advised by many to stay out of the race, but instead followed the advice of his former chief strategist Steve Bannon to back the accused child molester.
If they can destroy Roy Moore, they can destroy you.
The Conservative Senate Leadership Fund Super PAC, which refused to back Moore even after the RNC renewed their support, blaming Bannon for the loss, saying in a statement, not only did Steve Bannon cost us a critical Senate seat in one of the most Republican states in the country, but he also dragged the President of the United States into his fiasco. Fingers also being pointed at the president's political director, Bill Stepien. A source close to the White House calling on Stepien to resign, despite the fact that he urged the president not to back Moore, criticizing his inability to influence Mr. Trump. The president ultimately siding with Bannon, who a source says warned Mr. Trump that a Moore loss could embolden Democrats to go after Mr. Trump over the sexual harassment allegations he's facing, allegations that Mr. Trump has vehemently denied.
Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill tells us it will take a couple of weeks to certify these election results. That won't happen until after Christmas. So it's very likely that Doug Jones won't be sworn into the Senate until the new year. This reality, that gives some urgency to the Republican effort to get their tax bill passed before Doug Jones makes it to Washington. Chris, Allison, there is no word on when we'll hear from Roy Moore next.
All right, Kaylee, appreciate it. Let's bring in CNN political analyst David Gregory and CNN senior political analyst and senior editor for The Atlantic, Professor Ron Brownstein. David Gregory, you heard people saying this isn't nationalized. It's all about Alabama, keep it local. It never was. It was always nationalized. The president put his stamp on it. Both national parties ran down there to make an outcome happen. Now we have an outcome. What are the implications?
Well, we are living in an age where our politics are so unpredictable, and isn't this just a stunning latest example of that? Alabama has just sent a Democrat to the United States Senate. And the Star Wars movie's coming out over the weekend, so I think we can say that the Empire strikes back. The establishment has struck back in this case, a rejection of a style of politics that is defined by Steve Bannon and Donald Trump. Their own voters don't come out in the same numbers that they did for Donald Trump for Roy Moore, an incredibly flawed, morally repugnant candidate in Roy Moore. And then regular math in politics, suburban voters disapproving of Trump, disapproving of Moore, African Americans coming out in huge numbers as well. And the establishment of the Republican Party saying, no, this is the wrong direction. And ultimately that prevails. Richard Shelby, the senior statesman in the state, coming out so decisively at the end of this cycle. So you have Democrats who are emboldened after Virginia, now Alabama, with a head of steam into a midterm race, saying we can really turn things around after a 2016 loss.
Ron, let's dive more into the math that David Gregory just brought up. So first of all, the voter turnout was twice as high as what predictions were. Okay, it wasn't 20% as had been predicted; it was 40%. So let's just start there. Does that mean that the Democratic turnout machine was better than people thought, or that people were motivated?
Yeah, people are motivated. Look, we saw a very high turnout in Virginia as well. Look, Roy Moore, to state the obvious, was a candidate with unique vulnerabilities and liabilities. But what ought to worry Republicans is how much this result had in common with what we saw in Virginia and New Jersey, and for that matter, what we've seen in polling about who approves and disapproves of President Trump to begin with. As we talked about yesterday, Allison, there were three components that all clicked together to make this win possible. The foundation was huge African-American turnout and margins. Black voters were a bigger share of the vote yesterday than they were in the 2012 presidential race. When does that happen in an off-year election?
Yeah, they turned out more for Doug Jones than they did for Barack Obama. You just can't put a finer point on it.
And then second, you continue to see this historic Republican trouble under Donald Trump with younger voters. Doug Jones won 60% of not only millennials, but everybody under 45 in Alabama. That was after Democrats won 70% of millennials in New Jersey and Virginia. Again, what you would expect, given that Trump's disapproval with those voters is about 70%. And then the third piece that came together was a significant movement toward the Democrats, again, as in Virginia and New Jersey, among college-educated suburban white voters. Doug Jones only won 40% of them. That doesn't sound great, but that was double what Obama did in 2012.
And women. That's
college-educated white women.
College-educated white
women.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before. The gap between the college and non-college white women was enormous.
Huge.
But Doug Jones got up to 45% among the college. And I'll just throw out one point. Doug Jones got to 40% among college whites. He ran 20 points better than Hillary Clinton in heavily white-collar counties like Madison and Shelby, and the counties with the University of Alabama and Auburn. Here's one other statistics that the CNN polling unit ran for me yesterday. Among college-educated whites who are not evangelicals, which is what you would see in most of the places where Republicans are going to be defending those swing suburban seats, Doug Jones won 2/3 of those non-evangelical college whites. That's an ominous number for people in the suburbs of Philadelphia or Orange County or New Jersey or New York who are defending Republican seats next year.
And one of the inscrutable things, and one of the reasons it was helpful to watch in real time last night, is that state moved from the north and the central regions with the manufacturing, the ruby red Republican, the evangelical basis, and then down. And you got to see the staggered returns in real time, David Gregory. And there were two shockers. One was, there is a mystery that the evangelical vote has to figure out. How can they be so all in for someone who had so many checks on his morality? What is evangelical politics about? We get what the faith is, but boy, there seems to be such a disconnect between what is in the good book and what they're backing in candidates. You know, 80 plus to 18 were the numbers last night. And then you had the bigger question, David, of why? Why Doug Jones won? I stated in the introduction, it seemed to be a call to decency that was responded to. Do you think that's true, or is it being too optimistic?
No, I think there was a call to decency, and I think there was just a rejection of Roy Moore as someone who has embarrassed the state deeply within political circles. You know, from the outside, we were looking at Alabama, and it's easy to caricature the state and its voters based on Roy Moore. Well, Alabama set that record straight last night, saying, yeah, there may be a core base of support for Roy Moore and what he stands for, but it was not enough to prevail in the state, and I think that's very important. It also shows that Trump is something of a singular figure, and that his politics don't necessarily transfer to other candidates, and that's something that he's going to have to take stock of. He's got this divided, very uneasy coalition as he moves into being the head of the party in 2018 and then, of course, in 2020. The evangelical piece bears, I think, deeper examination and more time. I think the high points of that are a deep strain of pragmatism that runs in that community that is not about morality as such as who can A, win, and B, who will not, who will validate who evangelicals are. That goes back to the 19th century, where they didn't want to look like fools after the Scopes trial and the battles over evolution, a kind of legitimacy, and I think Trump has spoken to that. Which is to say, I think evangelicals as a political bloc are not voting on the whole picture. They're being organized and are intense around issues like generally the role of God in life and a kind of, the millennial understanding of the end of days for some, and, issues like the court, like abortion and so forth.
Go ahead, real quick, recognizing, as I said, that Roy Moore has unique problems, what you see here is the continuation of a big trend. Under Donald Trump and the way he is defining the party, Republicans are trading improved performance among older, blue-collar, evangelical, and rural whites for losing ground, a significant erosion among minority voters, millennial voters, urban voters, and white-collar white voters.
That is exactly what you saw last night. The flip between urban and rural was huge. The flip between straight evangelical versus college-educated non-evangelical was huge last night.
It was huge. And look, the latter are the groups in society that are growing, right? I mean, so you are in a suburbanizing or an urbanizing society that is growing more diverse, where millennials for the first time in 2018 will exceed the baby boom as a share of eligible voters. Those are the voters that the Trump-era GOP is trading away for very strong hands among older blue-collar evangelical rural. Those voters matter a lot. Democrats have to win more of them to control the House and the Senate. But in kind of the cosmic scheme of things, you see again in Alabama, as we did in Virginia and New Jersey, that the Trump definition of the party is driving away a very consistent coalition.
Can I just say, too, look at the brand of Democrat that's been winning, right? It's not the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and I think there's something to take away from that. Now, I think it is specific to being in Alabama. It was specific to being in Virginia as well, but I think that there's something to take away from that. In these races, you do have one opponent against another, and I think that the vulnerabilities of Hillary Clinton as a candidate led to certain demographic trends that we saw in that race that are being upended here that was about her as a candidate and about Trump running an inside straight in that election. And that's something to keep watching as we try to make this into a pattern, and that's what Ron's expertise is. By looking at the numbers, we have to see if this continues to be borne out.
Okay, so very quickly, Ron, in terms of the numbers going forward, the balance of power doesn't shift. The tax vote, if they can sneak it in, is safe.
Right.
But going forward, it just gets much slimmer. for
well, look, right, absolutely. And look, on the tax vote, what we've seen, one of the clearest things, as we've said, in all of these races has been a big white-collar suburban movement away from the Republicans. And you have in the House, in Northern Virginia, the suburbs of Philadelphia, Orange County, New York, and New Jersey, a lot of suburban Republicans who are being asked to vote for a bill that, because of the way it would affect state and local taxes and mortgages, would raise taxes on many of the same voters in their districts who are already pulling away from President Trump on cultural and personal grounds. I mean, that is a big ask. Worth noting, 93% of the people who disapproved of President Trump in Alabama voted Democratic. It was 87 in Virginia. It was 82 in New Jersey. Again, that's what you would expect. And in most of these suburban districts, the president is a lot less popular than he was in Alabama. So if you're one of those Republicans, you have to hear footfalls, even as you're being asked to vote for this bill, that could be very difficult on many voters in your district.
All right, Ron Brownstein, David Gregory, thank you very much for all of the analysis this morning.
All right, and we'll be getting perspective throughout the morning about what this means. The president reportedly very upset, kind of looking around for who to blame because of this latest occurrence. He doesn't want it to be a reflection on him. Well, we want to bring in, first of all, to seal the deal on what happened in this election. So we have Alabama Secretary of State, very important because he certifies the election. He makes it official. So what is this state? Is this over? We'll have him on.
Meanwhile, the White House defending President Trump's Twitter attack on Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. The senator is not backing down. We have the growing feud. Next.
Well, like most of you, I just bought a house.
Very nice.
Now I'm turning into my dad.
I text him full sentences.
I refer to every child as chief.
This hat was free. What am I supposed to do? Not wear it?
Next thing you know, I'm telling strangers defense wins championships.
Well, it does.
Why is the door open? Are we trying to air condition the whole neighborhood?
At least I bundled home and auto on an internet website, Progressive.com.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto.
I mean, why would I replace this? It's not broken.
No matter how the markets change, at T. Rowe Price, our disciplined approach remains. Global markets may be uncertain, but you can feel confident in our investment experience around the world. Call us or your advisor. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Patients, they ask me about whitening all of the time. I tell them the thickness of your enamel determines essentially how white your teeth are going to be. The strength of your teeth needs to be there in order for that whiteness to last. I would definitely recommend Pronamel Strong and Bright to my patients to keep their enamel strong, help to keep stains away, and polish the enamel. They're going to get whiter, brighter teeth. This is a really great product for my patients.
Critics are all in for Molly's Game, and now it's been nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards, including Best Actress Jessica Chastain and Best Screenplay Aaron Sorkin.
It's just a friendly game with higher stakes.
Molly's Game, rated R.
Who says being cheap is a good thing? We do. Cheapaware.com. There's nothing wrong with being cheap, with having fun, with saving money. So go ahead. Be smart. Be cool. Be cheap. Just download, click, or call and save on the best flights, hotels, cars, and more.
Cheapaware.com.
Go ahead. Be cheap.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, isn't it time to let the real you shine through? Maybe it's time for Otezla, a Premolast. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats plaque psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clearer skin is achievable after just 4 months, with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Tell your doctor if these occur. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts, or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract infection and headache. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Ask your dermatologist about Otezla today. Otezla, show more of you.
Here's the story of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters Sumatra Reserve. Let's go to Sumatra. The coffee here is amazing because the volcanic soil is amazing. So we give farmers like Vin more plants to grow more delicious coffee, which helps provide for Vin's family. All for a smoother tasting cup of coffee. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters.
Kynette Comfort Cup. Ready, sip, go.
President Trump is under fire once again for a provocative Twitter attack against a woman, this time Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who called what he said about her a sexist smear. The White House is pushing back, saying it wasn't sexist at all, and in fact blaming anyone who thinks that for having a mind that's in the gutter. CNN's Joe Johns is live at the White House with more. Joe, what's the story?
Well, Chris, the controversy over the president's tweet that got the most attention was an insult that was contained in the things he wrote there, indicating that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, one of the most prominent female office holders in Washington, D.C., would come begging to his office for contributions and would do anything for them. That was construed by the president's critics as containing sexual innuendo, especially given the fact that the president had used that kind of language before. The position from the White House press secretary was pretty simple, that people were reading things into the president's tweet that simply were not there. Listen.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way. He's obviously talking about political partisan games that people often play and the broken system that he's talked about repeatedly. This isn't new. This isn't a new sentiment. This isn't new terminology. He's used it several times before.
But this controversy was certainly not going to end there, because Senator Gillibrand herself was not about to give the president the benefit of the doubt.
It was a sexist smear attempting to silence my voice, and I will not be silenced on this issue. Neither will the women who stood up to the president yesterday.
This latest controversy coming in the midst of the Me Too movement, where a number of Democrats, including Senator Gillibrand, are calling on the president to resign. Others, of course, asking for an investigation into the president's treatment of women. Chris Nelson, back to you.
Joe, thank you very much. Let's bring back David Gregory, also joining us, CNN politics reporter and editor-at-large Chris Cillizza. So, Chris, let's just start with that tweet from yesterday. That came out on our watch. Yep. So Chris and I had to react in real time, as we so often do when the president tweets. And there was no getting around that parenthetical suggestion of what Kirsten Gillibrand had suggested she would do for campaign contributions, to the point where Chris and I were reading, we had to stop just to each other, like, wait, is that what that's saying?
Right.
That's what that's saying? There's no way.
As usual, Allison assumed I was making it up at first.
It was. Right.
Wait a minute.
Wait, it couldn't be that explicit. I couldn't believe it. But so the idea that the White House says that our minds are in the gutter, that means either they're tone deaf, that's the best possible reading of it, or they're fudging this again so that we don't believe our own lying eyes.
Well, I mean, look, I think the reality of Sarah Huckabee Sanders' job is Donald Trump does stuff and she finds ways to try to normalize what he does. I mean, she signed on for it. This is not an excuse, but that's what she does. If and would do anything for it, the parenthetical there, if it doesn't have sexual innuendo to it, then what does it mean? I guess I spent more time than I'd like to admit yesterday trying to figure that out. So the best possible thing is either just tone deafness, he's just unaware of how words mean things, so the begging reference before would seem to suggest that's not true, or it is she was willing to promise political or policy favors, like, if you give me this money, I'll do this, do something on a bill for you. But that's not at all what's implied. And let's remember, like, you could say, well, it's Twitter, but it's 280 characters. Like, you could say legislation, policy. There are ways to mitigate that, to drive home the point there.
So many people hear it differently.
Everyone, everyone would hear it differently. Reasonable minds, in my opinion, reasonable minds, when you look at that, would think, this certainly would
three
be
bad
suggestive.
things. Three bad things came out of it. Okay. Absolutely, no matter how you look at it, three bad things came out. One, there was this call once again, even from his friends. We had Chris Ruddy on yesterday from Newsmax, who said, you know, this is why people really should go over his tweets. No, because if this is what he thinks, this is what I want to read. I don't want you to sanitize it and help a guy if this is what is actually in his head. Two,
listening to the things
Sarah
that they say because they shouldn't be taken seriously. These are the same people who are threatening Jim Acosta with not being invited to a pool event. They need to be reminded this is the people's house and that these people, all administrations, are just passing through. And that this is not a kingdom. So I think this is what it is. The president is crude and crass. He will be judged for this. He's a gut player who thinks that kind of straight talk has gotten him to where he is. We'll see how it goes from here.
Well, here, USA Today has an editorial today that could not be more stark. Here's what it leads with. A president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush.
Yeah, that editorial I would urge folks to read. I wrote about it last night. I think there's that line is the most catching, understandably. There's a line in there that says, it comes right after that. It says basically, George W. Bush and Barack Obama made mistakes as president. They did things wrong. We didn't agree with them all the time. But they were fundamentally committed to sort of moral leadership in the country. They were trying to do what they viewed to be is right and decent, and that he is not. And look, I've written about this. David and I have talked about this in there. We've all talked about this. There exists. Donald Trump's does not believe that there is a moral leadership component to being president of the United States. We saw it in Charlottesville. We see it over and over again when confronted with things in which it is not about partisanship, it is about leadership. He simply vacates that part of the job, which is a critically, or I should say, has been from 0 presidents to 44 presidents, a critically important piece of the job.
And I would submit there's a reason for that. For all the heat I take because my last name is Cuomo, I grew up very close to this process. And one of the fundamental traits of all leaders I've met in my life is you have to, he or she, surrender themselves to the we. The reason I originally endorsed Luther Strange and his numbers went up mightily is that I said Roy Moore will not be able to win the general election. I was right to do that. The proof, the tweet that he just sent this morning. This is a moment for him to surrender himself to what just happened. The president learned the reason I originally endorsed Luther Strange and his numbers went up mightily is that I said Roy Moore will not be able to win the general election. I was right. Roy worked
and
hard,
try to make himself look better. And I don't think there's anybody around him
David Gregory,
who's going to talk him back
the president
from that. He looks bad. He's looked bad in this Alabama race right. From the very start. Right, because this is what he assumes that and what he's going to continue to do. He's just going to street brawl it a striking point to your last point himself look about better. Your family's tradition anybody around him who's going to talk him back over individual. You know, just as you run into people who say, "Oh, this guy's not my president," I say, "No, yes, he is. He's America's president because the presidency is bigger than Donald Trump." That's what his predecessors understand. Plenty of moral failures along the way, by the way, among even the greatest of our leaders in history, but a sense that this is about the presidency, not just him. That's what matters for our country and for the world.
David, Chris, thank you very much.
All right, so another big story for you to follow this morning. A diplomatic overture from the U.S. to North Korea. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says they are ready to talk directly with Pyongyang without preconditions. Here's the problem. The White House may be sending a different message. Next.
Thank you so much for co-hosting for the second time.
I've been sitting here in this dress since last year.
Really? Just waiting?
Just waiting for the call.
CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute, live Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.
Are you sure you're wrapping that correctly?
Oh, well, it doesn't matter how you wrap it. Your gift is already wrapped in America's most awarded network. Blanche, it happened again.
A gift is only as good as the network it's on.
Why do I have to be stuck here, listening to all this, talking about what hurts and property taxes, eating dry pie? Whoa! Go over there. The kids will accept you, eventually. Add experience to the table. Then make a mountain out of that Ready Whip. I'm out.
Made with real cream. You have your permission. Ready Whip. Instant gratification.
WeatherTech floor liners are the ultimate way to protect your vehicle this holiday season. They're ready for anything that comes your way. For a full line of perfect holiday gifts, go to WeatherTech.com. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from WeatherTech.
If you're looking for the perfect holiday gift for someone special to you, give a gift that will be truly appreciated. The Omaha Steaks Deluxe Gift Package. It's filled with $224 worth of great food for just $59.99. That's 73% off, only on this special holiday offer. The people on your nice list will receive 4 tender mouth-watering filet mignons, 4 extra thick boneless pork chops, 12 premium all-beef meatballs, and everyone's favorite, 4 classic juicy Omaha Steaks burgers, 4 chicken fried steaks, and 4 caramel apple tartlets. Your order will be delivered straight to your home or the destination of your choice, so you can give this wonderful gift to anybody on your holiday list. As a special holiday gift from us to you, if you order right now, we'll include 4 additional Omaha Steaks burgers free. That's 8 total. You get it all. Omaha Steaks Deluxe Gift Package, a $224 value for just $59.99. Give everyone a gift they can appreciate. Give them the Deluxe Gift Package from Omaha Steaks today.
Good evening, I'm Andy Cohen. What are you doing? Co-anchoring the news.
You're actually my co-host, but just on New Year's Eve. Get out of my chair.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, only on CNN.
Are you not wearing pants?
The newly updated Spectrum TV app is available on more devices, so you can enjoy your TV in more ways than ever before. You can stream live TV in the living room, on demand in the dining room, search for shows in the study, or set your DVR from any other room you might have, even this room, whatever this room is supposed to be. So download the Spectrum TV app today and experience more TV. Need some furniture.
Gift giving can be an exciting time of the year, but sometimes their reaction may not be what you'd hoped for. Fortunately, the Elizabeth Diamond Company has you covered with gifts for everyone in your life. Fashion jewelry, watches, stud earrings, and more. Up to 35% off or choose 48 months interest-free financing now through December 24th. It's true. If you haven't shopped EDC this Christmas, you're not done shopping yet.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Closed captioning brought to you by Herpes-NL. Do more for cold sores.
For a cold sore, I use Herpes-NL. It penetrates deep to treat. It soothes, moisturizes, and creates an SPF 30 barrier to protect against flare-ups caused by the sun. Herpes-NL.
All right, in a surprising departure from President Trump's tough talk on North Korea, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says the U.S. will not set preconditions for negotiations with North Korea. Take a listen.
We've said from the diplomatic side, we're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk. And we're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. Let's just meet. It's not realistic to say we're only going to talk if you come to the table ready to give up your program. They have too much invested in it. And the president's very realistic about that as well.
All right, now those are two very different things. Rex's analogy, the Secretary of State, versus where the president is on this. So let's discuss all the different facets with CNN national security analyst James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence. Good to have you on the show, sir.
Thanks, Chris.
So first, good idea, direct talks with North Korea, the idea of no preconditions. Is that a doable thing as well?
Well, first, it is absolutely the right idea, and maybe the only idea that I think is really viable with respect to any kind of diplomacy or negotiations. When I engaged with the North Koreans 3 years ago, it became abundantly clear to me after about 5 minutes of dialogue, including translation time, that there's absolutely no way the North Koreans are going to denuclearize as a condition for further dialogue. The North Koreans stuck on their narrative and have been for a long time, as have we. The United States is by far the bigger partner. So if we're going to change this, this dance, only the United States can do that. So I am a strong supporter of what the Secretary said in a very direct way to them. And I'm sure the North Koreans are mulling this over.
All right. Now, that's good news because of your perspective. However, there's a troubling counter to your own opinion, which is ironically coming from the White House. Let's put up their statement about this. This is Sarah Sanders, right? I mean, ostensibly the mouthpiece for the president. The president's views on North Korea have not changed. North Korea is acting in an unsafe way, not only toward Japan, China, and South Korea, but the entire world. North Korea's actions are not good for anyone and certainly not good for North Korea. Now, that is being taken as somewhat of a negation of where Rex Tillerson is on his position. Do you agree with that, and what does it mean to you if so?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what she meant by the president's position not changed, because, you know, I guess I prefer to, the messenger I prefer to listen to here is the Secretary of State. And hopefully that's the message that will prevail. And I think he did a great, great thing here by stating this in a very public forum. I also think, by the way, that we do need to sustain. I mean, that's the carrot, and we also need to maintain the stick, meaning squeezing the North Koreans with sanctions. So if and when we do talk, that we've got some leverage to exert. But I just hope that the Secretary's credibility has not been undermined, and that it won't further be undermined by a direct contravention of what he said, because I think this is the only path ahead, the only viable path to help resolve this crisis. And I also think his statement will come as a relief in the region. Particularly in Seoul and Tokyo, and I also think that this will gain us points with the Chinese, who've long implored us to dialogue with the North Koreans.
Well, look, I mean, but this has been very controversial. We actually had Democrats on the show pleading for this as a position in the throes of the president saying, you know, we may have to go after this guy and all the bombastic talk that he was using. Now, to see it as the main line from the administration, it raises the question of whether or not the White House will back up these efforts. We can't answer that today. We'll have to see. Let me ask you about something else while I have you here.
Right.
There is another layer on the headline that members of Mueller's team, FBI investigators, seem to have been showing an anti-Trump bias. First, you had the man, the FBI investigator Strzok. He was removed from the team. Now you have more information about another investigator that he was speaking with, a member of the FBI, a woman named Lisa Page. Texts where they were apparently calling Trump an idiot, saying that he and Bernie Sanders maybe cancel each other out. First of all, how uncommon is it for FBI investigators to hold political opinions? And two, is there an overarching concern for you about the legitimacy of the Mueller probe?
Well, even people that work in the national security arena are entitled to their own political views. And I know for a fact that throughout the intelligence community that there are very strongly held views about President Trump. And the issue is really whether that can be, that affects their work. And that's the case here. So, this is one special agent who was on the team. Special Counsel Mueller did exactly the right thing last July when he was made aware of these texts, and then in an abundance of caution, I think, to remove the special agent from the team. And I do question just how much one person can have an overall impact on this investigation. And I just think this needs to be, to play out. As far as Special Counsel Mueller's character and integrity, and does this cast doubt on the manner in which he's conducted this investigation, in my mind, absolutely not. I don't know of anyone better suited from the standpoint of his character to conduct this very delicate and very important in the history of our country investigation than Bob Mueller.
Mr. Clapper, as always, thank you very much for joining us. If I don't speak to you before then, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Chris, and the same to you and your family.
Yes, sir. Allison.
Okay, Chris, the suspect in the New York City subway bombing taunted President Trump on Facebook before police say he detonated a pipe bomb in a crowded tunnel. We have a live update for you next.
How's it going down there?
That's good. Like it, Mrs. Zhu. I'm over it, though.
That's fine. I miss her more than you anyway. Hey, my window is closing.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right, Miles.
Yeah, I love you too.
Harlem River, talk to me. Tell me what you think about
Needles, essential for vinyl, but maybe not for people with rheumatoid arthritis.